GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The former parent company of Silicon Valley Bank has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. As NPR's David Gura reports, SVB Financial Group is hoping to auction off its other businesses.
When Silicon Valley Bank imploded, it became the second biggest bank failure the U.S. has seen. California regulators shut it down. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, took it over, and it was turned into Silicon Valley Bridge Bank. So far, it has not found a buyer, and it's not part of this process, which is now underway in New York. SVB Financial says it's filing for bankruptcy so it can evaluate strategic alternatives for its other subsidiaries, including its investment bank and its wealth management business. It will also try to get rid of other assets. David Gura, NPR News, New York.
Chinese President Xi Jinping will go to Moscow next week to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin. China has not condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but it has put forward what it says is a peace plan to solve the conflict. The U.S. has rejected that proposal. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby says if China urges a ceasefire in Ukraine, the U.S. would not back that call. Kirby says it would only allow Russia to permanently seize territory it illegally took by invasion.
A ceasefire now is, again, effectively the ratification of Russian conquest. It would, in effect, recognize Russia's gains and its attempt to conquer its neighbor's territory by force, allowing Russian troops to continue to occupy sovereign Ukrainian territory.
Kirby says the U.S. is aware that China's relationship with Moscow has continued to grow since Russia invaded Ukraine more than a year ago. Turkey's president says his country will approve Finland's application to join NATO. As a NATO member, Turkey has had the ability to block the application. Turkey is still holding up a similar request by Sweden for NATO membership. North Dakota's Supreme Court has ruled against the removal of a preliminary injunction blocking the state's abortion law. Dave Thompson with Prairie Public has this report.
The state's laws on restricting abortion services had a trigger mechanism so they would take effect when Roe v. Wade was overturned. But the state's lone abortion clinic filed a lawsuit saying the state's constitution provides a fundamental right to an abortion. The clinic asked a district court for a preliminary injunction. That was granted. State Attorney General Drew Wrigley asked the state Supreme Court to vacate the injunction, but that court ruled the clinic demonstrated likely success that there is a fundamental right to abortion in limited incidents of life-saving and health-preserving circumstances. That means the injunction will stay in place until a decision is made in the clinic's lawsuit. For NPR News, I'm Dave Thompson in Bismarck, North Dakota.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down more than 440 points. That's more than 1%. This is NPR.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH Newsroom. I'm Henry Santoro in Brookline today. Could be a lucky St. Patrick's Day for our furry friends at the MSPCA. The shelter hosting a St. Patrick's Day Adopt-a-thon. And just for today, they're cutting adoption fees in half for some special dogs. So says the animal rescue organization's Mike Kiley.
Right now, we have about 78 dogs in our adoption centers that aren't quite moving. And about half of those are dogs that, for various reasons, need special adoptions, and we need amazing adopters, and we especially need amazing adopters for those animals that need the most.
Kiley says the special needs range from just being older and having a stable medical condition to needing some extra training after a tough start in life. You can check out the cuties on the website of the MSPCA's 4 locations in Boston, on the Cape, in Methuen, and in Salem. Massachusetts is on tap to launch 9 new early college programs this fall. The Globe reports that the new programs follow a unanimous vote taken on Wednesday by the state's Early College Joint Committee. Early college programs allow high school students to earn college credits while still getting their high school diploma. Some students even earn enough college credits to get an associate degree. In sports, the Celtics gang green today are in Portland tonight. March Madness continues today with a number of men's and women's games on tap. Exhibition baseball, it's the Red Sox playing Atlanta in sunny Florida today. And the forecast this St. Patrick's Day, cloudy mid-50s today, cloudy 45 overnight, 47 in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the United States Postal Service, reinventing its network with shipping options designed to keep businesses moving forward. USPS, delivering for America. USPS.com/moving forward.
Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio at 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. Hi, Jim.
You look fabulous in green for St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, you look out over the audience, by the way. There's one woman in the middle, that's her, wearing green. Yeah. Nobody else has green on.
I forgot.
It's rather embarrassing. And by the way, thanks to Terry, who brought us soda bread. Are you Terry? Who's Terry? Thank you, Terry, back there.
Oh,
which
thank
weighs
you.
about 11 pounds less than I do. It is really incredible. So happy St. Patrick's Day, Marjorie.
Thank you. You too, Jim.
Well, thank you so much. So earlier this month, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, which is our highest court in the state, ruled that a civility code enforced by local officials in the town of Southborough was unconstitutional. It was unanimous, by the way. As it turns out, at least in Massachusetts, according to the SJC, you do have the right to express yourself to public officials in as rude and disrespectful a way as you please. Again, at least in public meetings. All this was sparked by an incident that took place between one woman, Louise Baron, and a member of the Southborough Select Board, this guy Daniel Calenda. Calenda threatened to eject Baron from a select board meeting in 2018. We have the moment that sparked all of this. Here it is.
But you've still broken the law with open meeting law. And that is not the best you can do. And when you say that, this is the best we could do, I know it's not easy to be volunteers in town, but breaking the law is breaking the law.
So, ma'am, if you want to slander town officials who are doing their very best,
I'm not slandering.
Then we're going to go ahead and stop the public comment session now.
Look, you need to stop being a Hitler.
Recess.
You're a Hitler.
All right, we are moving into recess. Thank you.
Okay, they moved into recess, didn't let her speak, and the Supreme Judicial Court said it was unconstitutional. So, at 877-301-8970, do you think the court got it right? I do. Or do you think that allowing this kind of incivility just fuels the division and even violence that we've seen in so many segments of this society? 877-301-8970.
Well, Jim,
I'm guessing
you have some experience with this, having been a city councilor over there in Cambridge.
I was a city councilor.
Where people are very passionate about their issues. How did you deal with it when people were upset about...
Did you see the story in the New York Times about this today? The New York Times story said, a New York Times story, said a shrink was quoted, a psychologist or something, and said, it's a reflection of how the public officials treat the public speakers. If you treat them respectfully, generally you get respect. And so that's the way that we, and I as a city councilor, dealt with this in my 2 years on the Cambridge City Council.
That's not what I heard, Jim.
What are you talking about?
I heard that anytime anybody came in and made a complaint, you turned around, left the table, and went behind the curtain to eat another chicken wing.
From S&S Deli. That is true. Occasionally we would do that.
Maybe a tuna sandwich, maybe a ham and cheese on the rye.
But we never shut down a meeting. And by the way, I know this makes people uncomfortable, and particularly this woman's Hitler reference. I don't like Hitler references in any setting, but she's free to say this thing. And by the way, the court is going back to John and Sam Adams and King George III.
Well, I thought that was kind of
free speech kind of thing.
I think you have more, the colonists had more right to be mad at King George III of England than the people do.
But it's a variation of the theme.
Yeah, well, I can see both sides.
Are you okay with this?
Well, I can see both sides.
You can see the other side?
Yes, because in 2018, this is before the pandemic.
Yeah.
This is in the midst of Donald Trump's first term. It was before things got really out of hand with death threats and screaming at people and people standing up in school board meetings and calling the school committee members all these horrible names and people having to be escorted to the parking lot because things were so out of hand. So I think that there has been a kind of loss of, I don't think you need to call anybody Hitler. On the other hand, I don't think the selectmen needed to turn up the mics and call her disgusting.
Can I tell you, I think you're comparing apples and oranges. When you say violence and threats, this decision did not say you can threaten violence against the public official. That could be a crime, depending on what you say. I mean, so where you cross a line beyond what is protected speech, this decision is not going to affect it. But if you want to say whatever the hell you want to say, and violence or something like that is not connected to your speech, then go for it.
I can also
line.
see where the people have a point to say, if this is how you're going to conduct these meetings, everybody's screaming at everybody else, nobody's going to want to be in these boards.
And what do you think public officials will do if the decision was the opposite of this? Public officials who you are pretty willing to be critical of correctly, what do you think they'd do in a public forum if it wasn't rude or disrespectful, but they just didn't like what the member of the public had to say?
Well, that's the problem. They would
Exactly.
shut
They'd
everything
shut it down.
They would shut everything down.
So I think the Supreme Judicial Court got it exactly right. What do you guys think? 877-301-8970 is our phone number. It's unanimous, as I said.
It's unanimous. That's right. But I do think it's tough, that fine line, between what is. And she wasn't screaming, actually. She just called him Hitler.
No, she was totally measured.
Yeah, she was totally measured. She's been traumatized. She says she hasn't gone to any public meetings since 2018, and she's been going to them all these years. She was fighting about taxes going up in Southborough. And if you look at the video, you can see how much interest the public has in these meetings.
Yeah.
The place is empty.
Well, I mean, the Cambridge City, when I was on the Cambridge City
there
Council,
all by herself.
It was mostly the same 4 or 5 people that came back every single week, and it did drive us crazy, but it's their right to do that kind of thing. 877-301-8970. You know what's amazing about this court, which has nothing to do with the topic at hand? Do you know that every single member of the state's highest court was picked by Charlie Baker? Is that
right?
Yeah. I don't know if that was the first time in our history. How do you feel about one governor, no matter what his or her politics are, picking every single member of the highest appellate court in the state? Isn't that a little odd?
It's a problem, but I think he was trying to be given all the columns and stories written about his picks. I think he was fairly down the middle.
No, but let's assume he wasn't down the middle.
Then what's the problem?
I know it's a problem. 877-301-8870. What do you think of the SJC decision? Marjorie, as always, is playing both sides. There you are. I mean,
Alan from Milton, what do you think?
Hey, Alan, what's up?
Hey, guys, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
I've been an elected official in my community for maybe the past 12 years.
I didn't know that.
Oddly enough, I got my start because the board I was trying to speak in front of wouldn't recognize me to speak.
Wow.
So I decided to run against them.
Good for you.
From the clip that I heard, she sounded like she was being extremely respectful. She was saying some uncomfortable things to the official, but I didn't see any problem with what was going on there.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, Alan, referencing Hitler is not exactly respectful. But having said that, she was angry, but she kept it totally measured and under control. So,
exactly. I mean, nobody signed up to be a whipping post. Mm-hmm. Most of these people don't get paid. I haven't received a penny in compensation for all the volunteer hours I've done.
What are you? What are you elected to? What do you do?
I'm on the planning board now. I was on the select board.
Wow.
I'm running for school committee.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I would say, running for school committee, Alan, you could be a glutton for punishment there. Things can get really out of hand at the school committee from what I've seen. So,
believe me, I know.
So let me ask you something. You've been there for 12 years, right? Have things gotten worse in this regard? I mean, or is it just about the same? Because that's one of the complaints of town and city officials around the country, is that things have gotten really nasty, like the vaccine complaints that people are screaming and yelling at town meetings about enforcing vaccine mandates. Has it gotten worse or not in Milton?
Yeah, I think it's definitely gotten worse. I don't serve in Milton. I'm just in Milton right now.
Oh, okay.
But it's yelling, or saying uncomfortable things is one thing. Yelling, screaming, and swearing at you is another thing.
But you can't do that. I mean, that's what we're all confusing here. If you're yelling and disrupting a meeting, you can't do that. They're talking about someone who just used language that was uncomfortable.
Well, what's civil and what's not civil? I mean, is it civil to call somebody Hitler? Well, I think that's one of the problems here. How much you have to work.
F-bomb.
That's right. That's right.
If somebody dropped an F-bomb, that would, I don't know if that would be civil.
I don't think that would be civil, Alan. But thank you for your 12 years of service. That is very commendable
impressive.
that you would do that kind of work, because it's hard to get people that want to do that kind of work. But that's the other issue, when things get out of hand, how high can you raise your voice? How much screaming can you do before people decide that...
It's going to be...
You still there, Alan? What the hell are you doing? What are you, moving in? Alan, goodbye. Thank you so much for your call, as always. By the way, we dropped an occasional F-bomb on the Cambridge City Council, too. When we go in the back room and there were not enough potato latkes from the S&S Deli. By the way, we got paid a lot of money. We got
Cambridge
paid
City Council.
a
Yeah, you
lot
did.
of
Didn't
money
you get
at
like
the
$100,000 or
close
something
to
like that?
$100,000
Wow,
a year.
what a deal!
$100,000
You could have hung around
free food.
10 years and got a pension, Jim.
And you bring a shopping bag, and you essentially can feed your whole family for a week.
One of the most offensive things is ever, though. If you
Offensive things?
Offensive,
yes,
like
what?
OFF,
yeah,
offensive
what?
things. If you go to the State House and there's a hearing up at the State House, what they do is, and it could be a very controversial hearing, what they do is the place could be full, right? What's the place downstairs?
Gardner Auditorium.
Yeah, the place could be full, hundreds of people. Lots of people want to issue their opinions.
Real people we're talking about.
Real people that have vested interest in what the decision is. And what they do is they have every single solitary state representative or elected official get up and before them.
Even if
and
they
talk.
comment for a second before they speak.
So you could be there for 3 hours.
I agree.
Now that would drive me over the edge if I were a person that had taken the day off from work or 2 days off from work to come to address
I agree with you.
The politicians. That is awful the way they do that. Nancy in Acton, thank you for calling.
Hi, Nancy. What's up?
Oh, hey, thanks for taking the call.
Thank you.
So I attend a lot, have attended in the past, not as much recently, a lot of meetings in town and have been involved in some struggles in town and know many of the town officials, know them outside, have relationships with them that you sometimes want to maintain. And I never, ever, even when I disagreed with them strongly, which has happened many times, never felt like saying anything nasty to them until they told me I couldn't. And when they came down with these civility codes, that just sent me over the edge. And I think that's what happened with Louise Baron down there in Southborough. When they told her that she couldn't speak, that's when she called them a Hitler. It's so psychologically stupid to try and shut people up because that's just when they get crazy. So I agree 100% with the SJC on this.
You agree 100% with the SJC, and I agree 100% with you. That was a great call, Nancy. Thank you so much for making it.
Are you
when they told her she couldn't speak.
Are you getting any texts?
No, I'm not. I think there's some technical problem.
Yeah,
Keep
you guys,
texting. They'll come through in a
texts
second.
are not coming through. Just want to let you know.
877-301-8097. You know, the guy quoted, the lead quote in the New York Times is Jeff Beckwith, who runs the Mass Municipal Association.
He has been there forever.
He has, and he worked with me. We worked together years and years and years ago before he took over the Mass Municipal Association. Obviously, he's on the side of the local officials, the town of Southborough, etc. But if you're an objective person, even though nobody likes horrible incivility, and nobody likes, if you're an elected official, being called a name, is any fair-minded person going to come down on the other side of this from the SJC? You want a civility code pulled together by a bunch of town officials to be able to preempt you from saying whatever the hell you want to say about some policies that are going to affect your family and your life?
I guess there's a vagueness about it. You know, when does somebody cross the line?
Well,
That's what I'm confused about. When is it too much?
You threaten violence, you're screaming and you disrupt. I mean, it's like anything.
But how many screams? A few screams? One scream? I mean, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
Well, how many things are not in the eye of the beholder?
Well, that's the issue. I mean, you have a ruling like this. Are you supposed to sit there and get pummeled by, neighbor X, Y, and Z for an hour and a half?
The answer is yes. I'm serious, by the way. That's the price you pay. You decide. And by the way, the vast majority of people in my 2 years of work on the Cambridge City Council were respectful, even if they disagreed. And if occasionally someone gets really upset with you and maybe even crosses the line, so be it.
Our number is 877-301-8970. You can call or text us at that number.
You can text us. We won't get it, but you can text us.
I'm hoping they're going to come in soon.
They will?
They haven't come in yet.
No.
But I'm hoping they come in soon because you know what's going to happen when they all come in at once. I won't be able to read them.
It's very upsetting.
I know, it's very upsetting. Cam from New Hampshire, thank you for calling.
Hey, Cam, what's up?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
It's Kim, by the way. And
Who?
It's Kim.
Oh, it's Jim. Sorry.
Jim or Kim?
Tim.
Tim. What? This is going well, I should say. How are you, Tim? What's up?
Anyways, I'm a retired selectman in New Hampshire, in a small town that still holds a traditional town meeting.
Wow.
So I happen to agree with the decision from the Mass Supreme Court. Here's how it happens in our town. You can say whatever you want, but if you step over the line and commit a personal attack, which is probably what Corey Loganowski did because he's been thrown out of town meetings in Hempstead where he lives.
Hold on. Corey Lewandowski's been thrown out of town meetings in New Hampshire?
Yes, certainly. This is old. That's old news and not fake news.
I didn't know that.
Because
He worked for Donald Trump, if
Yeah.
people don't know. He
He
was,
did.
he was his press spokesman for a while. Anyway, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
He ran his campaign for a while, yeah.
He's a rude dude.
Well,
And
whatever.
rude
Keep going.
dudes and rude ladies are the only people that get thrown out of town meeting, and the only way that it happens in my town is if you make a personal attack on somebody, a member of the Board of Selectmen, the Budget Committee, or the town clerk, or somebody like that, an elected or appointed official in your town. If you make a pointed personal attack on that person, you get thrown out.
Okay, Tim, a personal attack. You're on the zoning board in your town, and I say the reason you're voting the way you're voting, Tim, is because you're a stooge. You're owned by the real estate industry. Is that a personal attack?
No.
Okay, fine. I'm then fine.
Personal attack is calling somebody a liar or a thief or something like that. You pointed out this earlier. You have to let this stuff roll off your back, or else you're not going to stay in public service.
Yeah.
Because people are going to find fault with your decisions, regardless. Somebody's not going to like what you did or what you said.
Got it, Tim. And you've made a lot of good points. And let me just say the problem with your threshold is it is not unheard of that a public official is lying, and that describing him or her as a liar is, you may consider to be a personal attack, but it may in fact be totally murdered. But thoughtful call, Tim. Thank you very much for making it.
I'm getting some text messages
Are you getting
now,
them now?
Jamie. Yes, I am.
What are they saying?
I have a gentleman from Seekonk who says that in Seekonk, there's one person that uses the public comment speaking portion of the meetings to solely insult the superintendent in certain school committee meetings. She continues, says, by placing their photographs on the side of her car, which call the super a weasel and one school committee member a something liar. It's a mess, and they have to sit there and take it. Imagine putting the pictures of these town officials on the side of your car, and somebody else is complaining about Marjorie Taylor Greene, wondering if she's been civil by yelling out things in the middle of the State of the Union address or other speeches made by President Biden. She and
Lauren Boebert.
Yeah, they did the liar thing. And then there was a guy during Obama, Joe Wilson, that did the liar thing. Remember, we were so appalled.
He raised a ton of money based upon that.
He did raise a ton of money, but everybody was shocked when he did that because you'd never seen that before.
Remember the look on Obama's face, too, and the pause that he and he didn't talk back like Joe Biden did when he was interrupted the other day.
But now, in Joe Biden's speech, you weren't even surprised. You kind of were waiting for it to happen.
We had to take a break.
Okay, we have to take a break. We're talking about this ruling about the Supreme Court, about whether or not, in the Massachusetts that is, whether or not there should be civility edicts in town meetings, or whether you can pretty much say what you want as long as you don't cross a certain line or go over the edge. Our number is 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. You can call us or text us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at facebook.com/GBH News.
When Bono and The Edge performed at NPR's Tiny Desk, they were joined by a high school choir.
On the road. It was funny because we all knew it was an accident, but Bono was like, he likes it, so we just did it.
How students helped shape the performance of two of music's biggest stars on All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Emerson Colonial Theater, presenting Into the Woods. The Tony and Grammy Award-winning Broadway musical is coming to Boston March 21st through April 2nd. Tickets at emersoncolonialtheater.com. And the Center for Jewish Studies at Harvard University, presenting an evening with Tony Kushner. The Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright comes to the Sanders Theater March 28th. This event is open to the public. More at boxoffice.harvard.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. We have a hell of a lineup today. In a couple of minutes, we'll be joined by the former editor of the Globe and the Washington Post, Marty Baron. Bill McKibben will join us at noon ahead of his 32123 national event aimed at the big banks that are funding the fossil fuel companies in this country. Metropolitan Chorale, the leader of it, they're going to perform some Celtic music on St. Patrick's Day. And I forget what Fortune Feimster, that great comedian, and the great Kelly Crosley. That's all coming up. If you're just joining us, we're taking your calls and texts now on a decision, a unanimous decision by the state's highest court, that it is fine to be rude and disrespectful at public meetings. And we want to know if you buy into their decision. Our number is 877-301-8970.
Julie from Hopedale just texted. She could home in on why people get so upset about not being able to speak at meetings. When we lived in Bolton, our street of approximately 32 houses, potentially going to be impacted by a polluting development right by our street that we were all fighting against during the public comment section. The select board muted all of us on Zoom so we could not ask questions and comment, and then they voted for the development without comment.
Well, that's why I said.
And you know what they did?
What?
She moved.
Well, and also, as I said to you before, you have, you've probably written about 1,000 circumstances where public comment was shut down, not because of the way it was delivered, but because the elected official didn't like the content. And basically, this gives broad protection to that kind of speech, which I would assume you'd like. But of course, Marjorie's coming down neatly on both sides of the issue. Chris in Cambridge, you're next on Boston Public Radio. Welcome to the show. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Hey, guys. I wanted to call in and say maybe we can normalize civility rather than enforce it. And then I'm reminded about the pictures of the superintendent on that person's car.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much normalization is going to work on that front.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's a really valuable thing to have all this public debate and to make sure that people are heard. One of the things I've seen in the Cambridge City Council is that when somebody is really just kind of over the line, people kind of don't feed the troll. They kind of just ignore the comment and they let it go and they don't react to it and they don't shut it down. And I think that's actually pretty effective as well in terms of just not engaging with it as well.
Yeah,
So
I have to
think
say,
that's
though, as one of 9 former city councilors at the turn of the century, when you have to sit up there and being told what an a-hole you are, it's pretty hard. It is hard, I have to say. And I had that experience on more than one Monday night. It's pretty hard to turn the other cheek, but you are totally right. It generally defangs the criticism. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's over and you move on. Chris, are you one of the people who did when I moved to Cambridge 35 years ago? Do you watch the city council on cable TV Monday nights?
No, I only watch it if I care about something specific.
Oh, let me tell you, it doesn't get much better than
They're all
that.
frequent flyers. I will tell you, Jim, you're right. I think I think the people who go there go 10 times more than anyone else. So.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Hey, Chris, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Of course, sometimes it's the government officials that are out of line. If you've never been to a governor's counselor meeting, you might want to check those out. They might be better now than they were a few years ago. But remember when the first gay justice of the Supreme Court in Massachusetts was up for her nomination?
SJC, yeah.
Yes, one of the counselors began talking about gay sex, and the
who was the counselor, by the way?
Oh my goodness, Barbara Lenks, I think her name was.
Yeah.
And
no, that was the nominee.
The nominee.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
right. Oh, who was the counselor?
Yeah.
You know something? I'm not sure, Jim.
Wasn't the curling iron woman?
No, it was not the curling iron woman.
That's Marilyn Devane.
Yes, she's
still there.
Is alleged to have attacked a
No, she called our show we were talking about. She
person
said she did it.
with a curling
She just
iron.
said there was an excuse as to why she attacked someone.
She didn't like her
with
haircut.
a curling iron. Exactly.
Colored her hair the wrong way, and she had to
By the
take
way,
out
that
the
is
curling
not
iron.
protected behavior from
Yeah.
the SJC.
I think it might have been a guy from my hometown, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say.
Hey, Sue
from Framingham. Thank you for calling.
Hey, Sue, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys?
Fine, thank you.
I totally support this, but the place where I would draw the line, I sat on the zoning board I was the vice chair for many years. I'm also an attorney. And when someone accused me of having been in cahoots with the neighbors and having, made a decision in advance, they're accusing me of breach of ethics. And that is something, and it's illegal. And that is something that
Wait, you mean what they accuse you of is illegal?
They accuse me of doing something illegal.
Right, and you have the opportunity, Sue, to respond and
so
say
did
it's
this
not
woman
true.
in this exact case. She accused the board of violating the open meeting law.
Yes, she did.
And that's
correct.
illegal too.
But go ahead, Sue.
But Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that's not something they should be shot down for.
Oh, good.
But it is something, that should be pointed out that I argued against. I lost my temper, and I told the guy he owed me an apology, and I got it.
Well,
the next time.
It sounds to me like you handled it pretty well, and the resolution was pretty good, no?
No, I would agree, but I just think that I find it troubling that people on, social media are constantly saying stuff that, and, in hearings, and they just don't realize the consequence.
Yeah, but Sue, I agree with you, but this discussion, I mean, there's no sane person who thinks it's a good idea to treat other people totally disrespectfully and call them horrible names. That's not really the issue. We all agree on that. The issue is it protected speech? And the SJC said it was, and you say it was, even though you were the recipient of some things that make you unhappy, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I would at that point, I think it's fair to tell the person to stop making the accusations unless they can back them up. They can say it, but don't keep repeating it. I'm going to,
Got it.
It's on the record. They can, just like you shut them down after a while when they keep repeating themselves.
Sue, we got it. Thanks so much. We appreciate your thoughts. Thanks so much for the call.
Paul from Worcester wants to know if this means he can go to the next DPU meeting about electric rates and openly rip the DPU a new one for being in National Grid's pocket. Okay, well, Attorney Brady,
the answer is
can he go?
Of course he can. I mean, of course he can. By the way, John in Providence, I think he tweeted us and says, if customer service staff and retail can do it, so can public officials. I assume they mean shut you down and hang up on you. We have time for one more quick one.
From the scene
Southborough.
of the alleged crime. David from Southborough, thank you for calling.
Welcome.
Yes, well, I'm very glad to call you. It's an extraordinary coincidence and a very, very important case, this Calendar case. And it's quite remarkable because Selectman Calendar, back in 2017, by the way, I was a selectman for 9 years in the 1990s.
You were?
And then in the 1990s for 9 years.
Great.
And then Calendar, in 2017, was a selectman. I was strongly opposing a project he was supporting. Mm-hmm. He got so angry, he wrote me a letter banning me from town hall. The letter was illegal because it was written by him alone and not by the full board. I ignored the letter. But the amazing thing is, in 2023, here we are, all these years later, 1 month ago, I got a similar letter modeled on Calendar's letter, written by the current chairman of the Board of Selectmen. The same thing mirrored on it, obviously written by the same individual.
Why'd they bar you from the meetings, David?
Well, because I'm opposing their project, and they're accusing me of silly misdeeds. They're all made up, they're fabricated to cause me problems. And so I've ignored it. I ignored the letter because it has no legal power. It's just written by one selectman. You need an executive session. Mm-hmm. But then they've actually called an executive session, cancelled because of a snowstorm. But now they're threatening me with trespass. But get this. Get this.
Yep.
The police chief of Southborough actually had the nerve behind my back to call my family in Europe, my daughter in London and my brother in England, who knew nothing about this case, and tell them on a conference call for 1 hour 2 weeks ago, going on and on about legal cases about me and how I should back off. My daughter was in tears.
Well, it's a horrible
thing.
David, can I make a suggestion? Why don't you drop us an email at the show, bpr@wgbh.org, and lay out all the details, because we're interested in your situation too. He has a really heavy Southborough accent.
I certainly will.
David, thank you. David, thank you very much
for
the call, and good luck with your situation. I guess things are wild in the streets up there in
Wild
Southborough. Who knew?
The mean streets of Southborough.
The mean streets of Southborough.
Many people have written about it.
That's right next to Northborough, is it not?
Exactly. I hope so.
Okay. We're wrapping this up. Thank you very much for your calls and texts. We're going to be speaking up next with Pulitzer Prize winner and former editor of both the Boston Globe and the Washington Post, Marty Baron. He's in town after being named the 2023 Richmond Distinguished Fellow in Public Life at Brandeis University. Marty Baron is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7. We're broadcasting live at the Boston Public Library and streaming at facebook.com/GBH News.
Recently, Elizabeth Warren stopped short of backing Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's 2024 running mate, and the Veep seems to have taken that personally. I'm Adam Riley. This week on Talking Politics, we'll dig into that incident and look at why Harris has become a lightning rod for criticism. Plus, State Auditor Diana DeZoglio on her review of the state legislature and the pushback she's already getting. Talking Politics tonight at 7 on GBH2 and online at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting My Fair Lady from director Bartlett Shear and Lincoln Center Theater, who brought you The King and I and South Pacific. My Fair Lady comes to Boston this April. More at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And Emerson College, inspiring curiosity and creative expression in all of us. Proud supporter of the Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Herwick III. Heard on GBH 89.7 and seen on gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. We're joined now by Marty Baron. In his time as editor of The Globe, his reporters exposed the sadistic sexual abuse scandal in the Catholic Church. He then moved on to run the Washington Post. At the end of his tenure, the rival New York Times called him a newsroom giant. Digital subscriptions tripled to 3 million. Revenue went, this can't be right, from 10 million to 200 million. Along the way, papers Marty ran won almost as many Pulitzers as he has fingers and toes. As Marjorie said, Marty's in town as the 2023 Richmond Distinguished Fellow in Public Life at Brandeis. Marty, it's great to see you.
Great to see you again.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being here. And thanks for all your great work here. You know, we talk a lot about lack of trust in the media. And yesterday we were talking about the real tragic demise of so many local newspapers. I think it was 2,500 have disappeared in recent years and stuff like that. So before we get to big picture media, have you thought much about that? I mean, what do we do about no local news in towns like Brookline, Needham, Westboro, Southboro, all over the place?
Right. Well, I think the failure of local newspapers and news organizations has been the biggest crisis in American journalism, far bigger than what's affecting national news organizations. Clearly, they have to obtain support from their own community. The community has to support them with subscriptions. They're not going to earn what they need from advertising. It's just not possible. So they have to go out and ask the public to support them. And if the public doesn't support them, they're not going to survive. So it really depends on public support.
You know that you may not know, there's a bill on Beacon Hill that would provide a tax credit of up to $250 if you subscribe to a local paper. I think it's modeled on federal legislation that not only does that because the tax credit for hiring, payroll tax credit for hiring local journalists, to small businesses if they advertise. Obviously, it's a level of government intervention that makes some of us nervous. Is that part of the cure?
I guess it's possible. I worry a lot, as you do, about government being involved in helping to prop up news organizations, because that means the news organizations are dependent upon government. And we know that there are people in politics, people in government, who would use that leverage against news organizations. And I think it's really important that news organizations maintain their independence. And they could be threatened with the loss of that revenue by politicians who are malicious in their intentions.
But then you have the model, like Jeff Bezos buying the Washington Post. Obviously, he's a very wealthy guy. John Henry buying the Globe. He's a very wealthy guy. And from my understanding, both of them have been pretty hands-off in terms of the operation of the paper. But that's sort of the other model, big newspapers, obviously. But that's kind of I don't know, is that a good model?
Well, I've been in the business long enough to hear everybody complain about every single model available for news organizations. I heard people complain about publicly owned companies, that they were too short-term oriented. People have been concerned about nonprofits because they depend on sort of elite foundations, which are controlled by people in elite positions, very wealthy individuals, and many of those foundations have their own agendas. People get concerned about the very wealthy. I heard that Jeff Bezos has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And concerned about the very wealthy owning news organizations, and people have complained about just about every form of ownership. And so you've got to have something. But I am concerned about government being involved.
You know, you're not there anymore. But you got a good story or two about Jeff Bezos? I mean, mano a mano kind of thing?
Well, not mano a mano, but no, I do have some stories about him, and actually I'm going to, talk about those in the book that I'm publishing.
Which is coming out in
Collision
October.
of
That's
power,
right.
Trump, Bezos, and the Washington Post. We're going to mention that at the end. So what's that about?
Well, it's centered on my 8+ years at the Washington Post, the reasons for the sale of the Post, the reasons for the acquisition by Bezos, the transformation of the Post with Bezos's purchase, the Trump's arrival on the political landscape, the conflict between Trump and the Post, and the resulting conflict between Trump and Bezos, and the issues that emerged many of the issues that emerged in journalism, many of which I was immersed in for better or for worse, and the assault on truth, the assault on objective reality, and so that's it goes up to January 6th.
Do you ever think about whether there are any common threads through Donald Trump as a public person and Bernard Law as a public person?
Sure. The desire to resist accountability for wrongdoing and an assault on truth.
Are you as relaxed as you appear to be? I mean, we never worked for you.
I'm just relaxed around you guys.
No, no. I mean, you're not. I mean, you look totally. How you dealing with? Well, I know you're not really retired. You're retired from being an editor, but you're not retired from doing work. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing well. It's. I'm not. I am sort of retired, but I'm not. I haven't stopped working. I'm working for myself now.
You mentioned. I'm sorry. You mentioned objectivity. I know your speech this week at Brandeis was in defense of objectivity. We'll get to that in a second. You also spoke at MIT last year, and one of the things you said, I was reading, you talked about the avalanche of lies the media feeds the people today, which constitutes a direct threat to democracy. We talk about that almost every day in some iteration. Could you flesh it out a little bit? What concerns you most?
Well, it's the avalanche of lies largely coming from our politicians, and I think that there's a feeling among a lot of politicians these days that they can say pretty much anything, and as long as you are a member of their political tribe, you'll accept that, and they aren't held accountable for that. I mean, the media's job is to hold them accountable for that, and I think that many of us do, but we're not necessarily reaching their supporters.
In that speech, you asked a couple of questions, and I don't know how you answered them, so I'm going to ask you to answer them now. One of the questions you asked in that speech at MIT, what makes the human mind susceptible to falsehoods from non-experts and resistance to evidence-based facts from people with expertise? You then go on to say, how can reality-based professionals disseminate information in a manner that is more persuasive to more people? I assume the Faucis of the world, et cetera. What were your answers to those questions?
Well, I didn't have answers. I asked MIT to help us get some answers. So that was a plea for them to help us. I mean, look, people like to be told that what they think is true. Nobody likes to be told that what they're thinking is false. They have their own set of facts. They want to be told, or quote facts, and they want to be told that those are accurate when they may not be. As far as the press playing a bigger role, obviously we can't solve the problem on our own. The problem is much bigger. It transcends the media. But I do think that we need to regularly provide the public the evidence that's behind the stories that we have. So if we're referring to a court document, we should have an immediate link to a document that's been annotated and point people directly to that document. We have the tools for that. Same thing with a video or an audio or data sets or anything like that. We should be able to direct people exactly to what we're talking about so that they can see for themselves. They can read the entire document for themselves, see that we've put it in context, and we need to be almost like a lawyer in a court, showing evidence, not in the advocacy role of the lawyer, but in the role of presenting the evidence.
That's the voice of Marty Baron, former editor of the Globe and the Washington Post. His book coming out in October, Collision of Power, Trump, Bezos, and the Washington Post.
It seemed to me that Donald Trump really changed journalism and how we covered journalism, and there was a lot of criticism of the press during the election of 2016, that the false equivalency thing, that Trump had various accusations against him on different fronts. Hillary Clinton had her emails, and that we kind of in the training, this side, that side, that we failed to distinguish the sins, if you want to call them, of Hillary from, I think, what most people would consider the bigger sins of Donald Trump. Is that valid? I think the ombudsman there, Margaret Sullivan, who was both with the Times and with you guys, talked about we were too late to call him what he said lies.
Yeah, well, I love Margaret. I don't always agree with her. And I don't necessarily agree with her on this. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of vetting of Donald Trump before the election. I mean, the Washington Post did an entire book called Trump Revealed. We didn't have enough reporters to do it. We brought in 20 additional reporters to work on that book, and we were criticized by Trump and his media allies for doing so, as if we were going after him. But no, we wanted to vet every aspect of his life and his career, because he was running for president, and somebody who is going to hold a position that powerful should be vetted. And so we knew a lot about Donald Trump beforehand. And if you actually go back and look at that book, which I've read it again, and it's quite prescient as to what kind of person he is and what kind of president he became. So there was a lot of investigating. We learned more afterwards because you're always in the process of learning new information. You don't necessarily know everything at one moment. So, was there too much emphasis on Hillary Clinton's emails? I would say there was, but I don't know that the vetting, the criticism of her on the email matter was nearly equivalent to what Donald Trump was being investigated
In
for.
retrospect, what do you think you didn't get right in terms of your coverage of Trump? By the way, if you want to switch headsets, I know it's driving you crazy.
You can make them tighter.
Take it off and just put the other one on, or something.
Maybe someone could show.
I just made it tighter.
Right,
so
there you go.
Excellent work.
We're good. I feel like I have my head in a helmet here.
Jim has a large head. He was wearing those
very
before.
So what'd you get wrong?
Well, I think the press generally, and I hate to talk about the press generally because it's so many different factors, but the press generally, I think, and also we at the Post, we didn't take the measure of the American public early enough to know that there would be a candidate like Donald Trump. That was a surprise to us that American politics would lead to someone like him. So we didn't take the measure of anger and other factors in the American public that would lead to someone like Donald Trump being the nominee of a major party.
Marjorie is one of the many people who understandably suffers from what has been called Trump derangement syndrome. And we talked about him like nonstop, like almost everybody else, for years. And what I would say almost every day, and you may be touching on this, is while I'm deeply concerned about someone like that in a position of colossal power, I'm as much concerned, if not more, that 60-some million and 70-some million people the second time think he's the right person to lead the United States. What do you think happened to the American public that allowed a Donald Trump to rise to power, Marty Baron?
Well, I think there's a huge number of factors. I mean, you have to look at a huge portion of the American public felt left out of the American economy, first of all. That's one factor. And they felt that they were getting no attention from people in Washington. And to a large degree, they weren't getting attention from people in Washington. I think there were other factors. The election of Barack Obama led a lot of people in this country to be terribly upset that there was a black man in the White House, and that brought forth racist sentiments among a segment. Not all of them. I'm not saying it's all of them, but that's a factor. So I think there are huge ranges of factors. And I think the media environment is incredibly fragmented these days. So because of the internet, you can find a media outlet that tells you what you want to hear in a way that you couldn't when I started in this business. So, I mean, when I started, we had 3 major networks. Every city essentially had 1 or 2 newspapers. Now, of course, you go on the internet, you can find anything. And you also have a major network in Fox that clearly had sided with Trump, ultimately, not initially.
I want to talk about Fox in a minute, or I'm sure Marjorie does, but just stay with us for a second. So I totally subscribe to the notion that people felt they didn't have a voice. And what was his line? I am your voice. And he said at CPAC, I'm your retribution was the line this time. But fast forward X number of years, and Donald Trump said the other day, and I subscribe to his opinion on this, if he's indicted, whether it's for insurrectionist activity or for violating campaign finance laws in Manhattan County in terms of the payment through Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels, his numbers will go up. I actually buy that notion. And whether they do or not, I think most people would agree, at worst, they're not going to go down. What does that say to you? I mean, credibly accused by 20-some women of sexual misconduct, in some cases rape, a multitude of, I would argue, crimes. They're not crimes yet, but criminal-like behavior, and they're stuck to him like glue.
Right. Of course, that's not what he's being indicted. He might be charged with. He's being charged with potential hush money payments and disguising what those payments were. Right. So, I mean, he hasn't been charged yet, first of all. But
of course.
look, we live in a very tribal society. We live in a very polarized society, and that's probably not going to change. And if people feel that their guy is coming under attack, particularly if it's an attack as a result of media coverage or what they call the deep state, they're going to go defend him. And so he probably is, I hate to be a political pundit. I'm not a political pundit. But I think there's a good chance that his poll ratings would go up, that people would come to his defense if they feel that he was unfairly attacked.
Let's talk to Marty Baron.
Let's go back 20 plus years to 2001, around there, where the whole church scandal began. And people who've been around here for a long time know that 20 plus years ago, this was St. Patrick's Day. This wasn't totally Irish Catholic town. Cops were all Irish Catholic, not all, but most of them Irish Catholics, politicians, Irish Catholics. The church was hugely powerful. All the bigwigs in town went to Cardinal Law's garden party every year. There was a line there at the time that said it took a Jewish guy from Miami to come to Boston to really go after the church, because there had been trials of pedophile priests beforehand, but you decided to go after the institutional church. Tell us.
We should be clear. He's the Jewish guy from Miami.
He's the Jewish guy from Miami. That's right.
I'm really originally from Tampa.
Okay, from Tampa. Okay, but tell us about that decision, because that was earth-shattering here in Boston, and the Globe was pummeled and hammered by very powerful people when those stories first came out.
Well, look, I got here. I was looking for what are the stories that we need to cover, and there was a column that was written by Eileen McNamara the day before I was supposed to take my first day of work, and she talked about the case of John Gagan, who had been accused of abusing as many as 80 kids. And at the end of the column, she said the truth may never be known because the documents are under seal and all of that. And so, my first day of work at my very first news meeting, after everybody talked about what they were doing, I noticed that nobody talked about that case. And I asked what we were doing to follow up on that, because we ought to be able to get past one side says this and one side says something else. And then somebody in the meeting said, well, those documents are under seal. And I said, yeah, I read that. But have we thought about going to court to unseal those? I don't know what the laws of Massachusetts are, but in Florida, even though these aren't public records per se, we would have had the inclination to go to court to try to unseal these documents on the grounds that there was a public interest. Have we thought about that? Well, the room went silent, essentially, and then we met afterwards, and we decided to consult with our lawyer about that. He then researched it. We proceeded. And then we embarked on a full investigation as well. There were parallel tracks. So one was the legal track, the other one was the journalistic track. And so then we embarked on that, and they worked on it, and they published their first stories right at the beginning of 2002.
And didn't Cardinal Law say that the Boston Globe was going to burn in hell or something like that?
Well, no, that was he called down the power of God.
That's right.
That's not when I was there. That was during the Father Porter case in Fall River.
Oh, okay.
Many years earlier.
The wrath of God.
So, the wrath of God. He didn't call down the wrath of God. When we actually published, the documentation was so solid that clearly most parishioners within the church understood that the principles of the church had been betrayed by the cardinal and the entire hierarchy of the church. And so they were much more angry at the church than they were at us, including the most faithful within the Catholic Church.
Do you hate questions like the one I'm about to ask you? Is that at the top of the pantheon of things that you are responsible for leading? Is that number one? Do you hate questions like that when someone says, can you rank all of the things from Afghanistan to, I could go down the list, we don't have enough time. Is the Catholic Church is exposing the venality of some in the Catholic Church at the top of your list of proud accomplishments?
Yes, it is actually at the top of the list, and the reason is because it had such a huge impact on ordinary people who had been victimized by the church. And so I think that work actually gave voice to people who had been voiceless up until that point.
So, Marty Baron, every time we have we don't have enough staff today. We usually have a mic in the audience, and the governor's here, Governor Healy's here, the mayor's here. Some high school student says, I want to get involved in public life, but I think it's so corrupt and it's so whatever. What's your advice for me? If that kid was standing there now and journalism was the topic rather than public service, what do you say?
They want to get into journalism?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I say do it, please. We need good people in the profession, and I think there will always be journalism. As long as we have a democracy, there will be journalism. Without a democracy, we're not going to have a free press. And by the way, without a free press, we're not going to have a democracy. There never has been one.
Democracy dies in darkness. Do you know that?
Yeah, how did that come about?
Have you heard that?
I heard about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did it happen?
Jeff Bezos wanted us to have a motto. We didn't have one. He didn't want to call it a motto, by the way. He wanted it to be called a mission statement. Essentially, he wanted it to be brief and to capture our sort of essential role in this country that was distinctive to the Washington Post. He told us not to be afraid of the word democracy. And for about a year, we labored over this, and we came up with some really awful ideas.
Like what?
Well, I mean, boy, there were a lot of bad ones. But
read the book.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Read the book. But in any event, I mean, we tried with light, by the way, instead of darkness, because, I mean, I myself had reservations. You know, you just don't have death and darkness in most marketing efforts. So, like, is this going to work, really? So we tried light, but it sounded terrible. It sounded too self-adulatory. It sounded like a cult, almost. And it was like, we just hated that. So so this was a phrase that had been used by a judge in a case some years earlier that Woodward had modified it. Bob Woodward had modified it to say, democracy dies in the dark. And then finally, when we couldn't come up with anything better, Bezos just said, let's just go with that.
But there's another judge. Sunshine is best disinfectant. That's not too bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you want disinfectant at the top
that's
of
a
your
very
paper
good
every
point.
time.
You know, we only have a minute
That
left.
sounds really bad.
How much do you love the portray? I know you said that Shriver portrayed you as the stoic, humorless, somewhat dour character that professional colleagues instantly recognized. You love that, right? I mean, did you not love? I don't mean the dour part.
Oh,
the portrayal.
great.
Did you not love that?
Of course. I mean, look, I got to be portrayed by somebody who's 4 inches taller, who is a lot better looking and a lot more fit.
You're pretty
and
good
so
looking.
when people mention my name, they get to think of him, and they don't have to actually think of me, like what I look like. So.
On that note, it's great to see you, Marty Baron. We're really looking forward to the book. October, yes?
Yes.
October.
Yes.
What else are you doing with yourself? We only have a couple of seconds. What else are you
Well,
doing?
that's pretty much occupied things. I've done some speaking. I'm on a bunch of nonprofit boards, Knight Foundation, which has a big role in journalism, and Carnegie Corporation, and advisory board for the Shorenstein Center here in Harvard, and even on the board of the New World Symphony in Miami. So you know,
Not in Tampa?
something a little different. Well, there's not much classical music in Tampa, I'm afraid to say. But
it's fabulous to see you, Marty Baron. Congratulations on everything.
Yes,
Good
thank
luck
you
with the book.
very, very
thanks
much.
for having me.
I hope we can have you back when the book comes out. We've been speaking to Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, former editor of the Boston Globe and the Washington Post, Marty Baron. After a quick break, we're going to be joined by environmentalist Bill McKibben. President Biden has angered environmentalists all over the country, if not the world, by greenlighting the Willow Project that's opening up new drilling in Alaska. We're going to talk with Bill McKibben about that and his big protest against big banks, which is set for Tuesday. Bill McKibben is next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are streaming live at facebook.com/GBH News, and we are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library.
Ding ding a ding ding a ding da, ding ding a ding ding a ding da da, ding ding a ding ding a ding da, ding ding a ding da da.
Twice. Okay.
Okay.
And we will take it all the way back. The first time, then we go to 32. With everybody. We'll figure that out. We're going to practice. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's right.
We start again?
Krishna Tana Shabak Yak Mokhed Dirmed O Dilan O Barana Hina Maktahar Tahar Yasber Tobak Avi Arab Bo 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 Nalaharkak Bo Bo Shiansan Fair Harkak Bo 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 Nalaharkak Omen Ben Yadak Ziyadak Vaidi Honaksa berahai, honaksa raiti, hiresa dulenta blazena bindi, onar yasi ansana ferarkak, bo nalaharkak, bo shiansana ferarkak, bo nalaharkak, Oben men yadak zni yadak avaidi. Da mensha Irak masirang dam zi oirak Urusha Guinea slice di Onar verak Onar yasi ansana her harkak Diesen lan pika di diesen lan oindi Diesen sa strike den sana her harkak Onar verak Onar yasi ansana her harkak Bo nalaharkak Bo shiansana her harkak Bo nalaharkak Boy men yadak zni yadak avaidi Bo nalaharkak Bo shiansana her harkak Bo nalaharkak Boy men yadak zni yadak avaidi.
Heal Cannabis has closed its recreational dispensary and turned its license back to regulators. The closure, which leaves Provincetown with 4 shops in operation, comes after stores in Northampton and East Hampton became the first to close their doors since adult-use pot sales began to fall in the fall of 2018. In sports, Celtics are in Portland tonight for a game against the Trailblazers. March Madness continues today. A lot of men's and women's games on tap. Exhibition baseball. Red Sox play Atlanta in Florida. Cloudy mid-50s this St. Patrick's Day. It's 50 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fidelity Investments. A dedicated advisor can help create a wealth plan for a full financial picture. More at fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library in Copley Square, and we are streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, and by the way, during the break, we always have live music on Friday. The organizations, the Metropolitan Chorale and Fellswater, which is a Celtic group, just rehearsed, and they are
great.
Spectacular.
They're
going to
great.
be performing in the 1 o'clock hour if you want to mosey on down here. First, we're joined on Zoom by Bill McKibben. Bill's an author, educator, environmentalist, co-founder of 350.org, founder of thirdact.org, has a newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, also has a new serialized book titled The Other Cheek, an Epic Nonviolent Yarn, and a huge national event coming up on Tuesday, 32123, which we'll talk about at some length in a few minutes. Bill McKibben, great to see you.
Good to see you guys. How are you?
We're
Happy
excellent.
St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
And
Thank
to you.
you very much, Bill McKibben.
All right, McKibben.
Is that Irish or Scottish?
It has some Irish in it, yeah.
Okay, okay, that's good enough.
Close enough,
Good
right.
enough. So, in anticipation of your coming, I've been getting texts all morning from people that are brokenhearted about President Biden's decision to allow for oil drilling in Alaska, the so-called Willow Project. How bad is this?
I think it's kind of heartbreaking. And one of the reasons is that it seems to indicate that there's a sort of running in place quality to all of this.
Yeah.
The Obama-Biden administration 10 years ago turned down the Keystone Pipeline project because they said it would significantly exacerbate carbon pollution. Well, that was 10 years ago. In the intervening 10 years, we've had all 10 of the warmest years on record. We've had floods and fires like we've never seen before. The U.S. has signed a global treaty saying that we will try to hold the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. President Biden has run as a climate champion and promised that we would never drill on federal land, no more permits. And yet he's granted a permit for a vast new expansion of drilling into a new part of Alaska, the fastest warming place on planet Earth. And it's such a crazy idea that ConocoPhillips, who's going to be doing the drilling, thinks that they're going to have to build a huge system to re-chill the ground that's already melted so that they can support the infrastructure. They're going to try to freeze back the permafrost so they can build this thing. It's really saddening. I watched Deb Haaland, the Interior Secretary, who's someone I deeply admire, give the official sort of explanation for it on video last week, and it was sort of like watching a hostage video. You knew her heart was not in it, and in fact, she didn't even actually sign the document. She left it to her deputy to do it. And somehow, Marjorie, the whole tragedy is just a tiny bit deeper because it's happening while President Carter is dying. And it was President Carter who managed to preserve more of Alaska than anybody else. It was one of the great achievements of his administration. And to kind of watch, it really is I get the political reasons behind it, I guess, and I think they're wrong, but it is there. You can tell that I'm sputtering. It's hard not to just feel heartsick about it, especially if you've spent some time in Alaska.
By the way, the exact words that candidate Biden used that Bill talked about was no more drilling on federal land, period. You say, I guess I understand the politics. I really don't understand.
I'm not sure I do either.
The argument that I read in the New York Times and the Washington Post is, at least their public argument is, listen, we have contracts with these people. We're going to lose in court. And
that's not a good argument.
Well,
I've talked to the people at the Earth Justice and the other big environmental law firms, and they all say there's 100 grounds on which to fight this. You'd have no problem fighting and delaying it for a long time, so on and so forth. I think their thinking is we have to move to the center in anticipation of the next election. And granted, the next election's going to be important, and it would be a great tragedy to elect a Trump or a DeSantis or someone who doesn't care about this and doesn't care about 1,000 other things. But I think the political calculation's probably mistaken too. There were 3 million comments sent in or made public about the Willow thing, all of them in opposition over the last couple of months, most of them coming from young people.
Exactly.
It's hard to get young people to vote because they're understandably suspicious about whether or not it does any good. And so if you make an ironclad promise, not an ambiguous one like President Biden did, this is, in environmental terms, this is read my lips, no new taxes, But it really is tragic, and the fact that Alaska is the fastest warming place on Earth is kind of tragic too, because their entire congressional delegation and power structure is all for doing this, and it just makes you wonder if that whether it makes you despair a little bit about the ability of human beings just to look around them and understand what the hell is going on.
One last thing. We're not going to dwell on this because we want to talk about Tuesday, which is to me very exciting, and I'm sure it is to you too. But one last thing about this. I can't remember what precipitated this, but we were talking to you right after, maybe it's when Manchin killed an earlier iteration of the Inflation Reduction Act, where you said something like, John Kerry has the most difficult job in the world. How does he pitch environmental responsibility when his own government at home isn't doing it? How does John Kerry, for as long as he's there, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pitch what they believe in when the response will be, look what your president just unilaterally did, not forced by the Republican majority, but unilaterally on his own behalf? What do they say?
Yeah, I think they just sputter like I am. I don't think they have anything to say because it's clear that Biden is taking the easy way out here. And political leaders on this issue always want to take the easy way out no matter where they are. Everybody would like to simultaneously be seen as concerned about climate change and also not have to offend any of the powers that be. And you really can't do both of those things. The administration is trying to, in a sense, do both of those things by going after the demand side of the equation. And the IRA bill is all about, building so many heat pumps and electric vehicles and stuff that someday we won't need as much oil. But truthfully, given the fix that we're in, you're going to have to go after this from both the supply side and the demand side. And truthfully, it's probably easier to go after it from the supply side in a lot of ways. There you've got to stop 10 or 15 huge projects instead of having to, the demand side is crucial, has to get done, but there's 100 million homes in America. That's hard work to get inside all of them and change the appliances.
We're talking to Bill McKibben.
So what's happening Tuesday? Give us a little uplift here.
All right, good. So Tuesday is going to be real fun, I think. It's sort of the climate movement back in the streets for one of the first times since the pandemic. And in this case, the target is the four big banks in this country: Citibank, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo Bank, and Bank of America, who also are the four biggest funders on earth to the fossil fuel industry. So if you're worried about having an effect on the rest of the planet, this is an extraordinarily important way to have an effect on the rest of the planet as well as our own country. Those banks continue to lend money for the expansion of the fossil fuel industry. We're not telling them that they have to cut out all relationships with the fossil fuel industry. Mm-hmm. Sadly, we're going to be using oil and gas some more years, and so Exxon needs a bank. But the scientists have been utterly clear that they cannot keep expanding this enterprise. As the Secretary General of the UN said a few weeks ago to the oil industry, your core product is our core problem. And the trouble is that the banks keep treating these guys as core customers instead of beginning to wean them off that flow of money. So people are standing up to ask that they do this. And they'll be doing it in at least 100 demonstrations in more than half of the states in the union on Tuesday. This is a first shot across the bow, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty loud and beautiful shot. There are 50 groups around the country organizing, including most of the biggest environmental groups, the Sierra Club, Greenpeace. It's being led by this outfit, Third Act, that we started a year ago to organize old people like me over the age of 60. And so at least some of the demonstrations and things are going to be, how shall we say it, senior themed. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., where people have assembled 50 rocking chairs, and we're going to use those to blockade the banks. It's going to be a sit-in for people who like to sit in rocking chairs. But it's going to be everywhere, including, of course, in the hub. People are gathering at noon at Downtown Crossing, the intersection of Washington and Winter Streets, at noon on Tuesday. And 350 Massachusetts and Third Act Massachusetts and Mothers Out Front and all sorts of groups are coming together in the Bay State to push hard. This became more and more, well, we obviously didn't know about the timing when we started, but it became more and more important and poignant this week with the failure of Silicon Valley Bank. Money is pouring into these big money center banks. In essence, because everybody knows that the government will never, ever, ever let them fail no matter what, in essence, they're arms of the government at some level. We're all backstopping them. And so given that enormous privilege and the extraordinary profit that it's produced, we need to demand that they behave responsibly in the face of the biggest emergency we've ever come up against. And so far, they're not.
I have a ton of questions for you, but first, most mechanically, what are people doing? Cutting up their credit cards?
Mostly cutting up their credit cards. That's the kind of, that's one, at least one of the things that's easy to sort of visualize. And so there's lots of good ways of doing it. In Alaska, they've built big credit cards out of wood and they're going after them with chainsaws. We just got great video from Wendy Benchley, the widow of Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws. She's an ocean activist. She went down underwater on the dying coral reef in the Florida Keys and cut up her credit card underwater with all these, big fish looking on with interest. Rebecca Solnit, the great, for my money, the best essayist at work in the language at the moment, is cutting up hers against a dying coral reef against those fire-scarred forests out in California, where she lives. On and on and on. So there should be lots of beautiful scenes, and the art you can see if you're watching on the internet. You can see a little bit of the art behind me and my office now, people have been just producing beautiful, beautiful things and learning how to do things like build 20-foot pair of scissors and enormous. One of the things we're going to be doing is putting smoked cardboard smokestacks next to some of these bank branches, just to remind people that in essence they're like factories that are pouring carbon into the atmosphere even though you can't see it. So the real goal of the day is not, I mean, we know we can't bankrupt Chase Bank. I mean, these guys are literally the capital in capitalism. They're the biggest pools of money on earth. But we do think we can draw a tighter connection in people's minds between cash and carbon and begin to put some real pressure on these guys to shift their policies going forward. We shall see.
By the way, this is 32123, which Bill McKibben called the best palindromic day ever, which I think is perfect. A couple of things about what you've written about this. You mentioned, obviously, the four biggest banks. Did you not write, or did I confuse this with something else, that amongst their investments is a combined $10 billion in ConocoPhillips, which is Willow, right?
Which is the guys who are doing Willow. I mean, all of this hooks together.
Yeah.
This is not like this is a deeply interlocking system.
Secondly, you also wrote, which I was not aware of, that I think it's HSBC, which is the largest bank in Europe, has already taken the move that you want these four banks to take. So what's the political dynamic that allows or causes that to happen that prevents it from happening here, Bill McKibben?
Sure. Two things. One, HSBC, biggest bank in Europe by assets, did this in December after a long campaign of public pressure like the one we're seeing here. And so that's hopeful. Of course, what Europe doesn't have is the equivalent of kind of red state senators putting pressure on these guys about being too woke or whatever it is, as if, physics was a kind of woke, I mean, don't get me started. We don't need them. We don't care if they're woke or not. We just want them not asleep at the wheel, which is what the banking system is at the moment. There's a kind of zombie aspect to the whole thing. They've always lent money to these guys, so they might as well just keep doing it. They've got a team that's in the oil and gas banking, finance division of their bank. That's what those guys know how to do. They're going to keep doing it. When you're in an emergency, you actually have to change. And if you don't change, then nothing happens.
Julie from Watertown just texted, and she's worried about the effect the failed bank, after the Silicon Valley Bank failure, that's the big four of these banks, Citi and Bank of America and Wells Fargo, et cetera, stepped in to try to, give money to make sure there isn't any more failure. And she's concerned that they're trying to portray themselves as heroes rather than victimizers in anticipation of your protests on Tuesday.
With great power comes great responsibility, and these guys have never had more power. They really are. I mean, they're the functional equivalent, the partners of the Federal Reserve at the head of our banking system, and so they have to accept the responsibility that comes with that to deal with the truly epochal changes that the planet faces. And I mean, this is happening in real time. I just saw yesterday the data from the Southern Hemisphere. Argentina's just come through the hottest summer by a huge margin that they've ever seen. I mean, heat waves, the meteorologists were saying there's nothing in our climatic experience to rival this. And that's bad news for the planet because they're now the biggest exporter of soybeans to the world and the third biggest exporter of corn. Look, there's nothing abstract about what we're talking about in any way. It's also true that the banks, the banks have a long history in a lot of this stuff. Ben Jealous, the new head of the Sierra Club and the former head of the NAACP, who you guys should talk to at some point because he's a fascinating guy. He and I wrote an op-ed piece for The Guardian yesterday, reminding these guys that, in the last century, they spent most of the time helping enforce redlining and racial discrimination across this country. And it took huge movements to push them out of that and make them change. we'll build it, we'll push hard, but man, we need to move fast here because the climate's moving fast.
You know, Bill, what you're supposed to be doing, which you have failed to do, is you're supposed to say, and if you want to find out about actions on Tuesday near you, you go to thirdact.org. That's spelled
Thirdact.org. You said it.
THIRD-ACT.org. You can find out where demonstrations, actions are happening all over the country.
You're much better at this than I am.
I think I am. Yeah, you're not a really good organizer at all.
Yeah,
National Day of Action, March 21st, 321. 2, 3. You know, can we end on a happier note about, we started with great disappointment in the president because of the Willow Project. You mentioned the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres. Here's a little bit of him addressing the General Assembly of the UN just last month.
We must end the merciless, relentless, and senseless war on nature. It is putting our world at immediate risk of hurtling past 1.5 degree temperature increase limits, and now still moving towards a deadly 2.8 degrees. No more baby steps, no more excuses, no more greenwashing, no more bottomless greed of the fossil fuel industry and its enablers.
And no equivocation, I should say. You've spoken and written about recently, I don't know if you use the word heroes, but I would say heroes of this who have no equivocation, the Gores, the popes, or the Pope, and Guterres. Spend a minute just talking about what they've been saying of late, Bill McKibben.
Well, look, there's a small number of people on this planet who have a global platform and who are not beholden to any of the kind of political and special interests that bedevil everybody else. So, yeah, the Secretary General of the UN, who comes as close to being a spokesman for the whole world as anybody could claim to, and he has been, and he also spends a lot of time with the scientists the UN has gathered to. He's scared out of his mind, and he talks in absolutely straightforward terms. The same terms that Pope Francis, who is another person with a global constituency, does, and the same terms that Greta Thunberg, another person with a real global constituency, manages to speak in. That's important to understand, because we don't get straight talk in the way that we need it, even from many of our best political leaders on all of this. So pay attention to those things would be my advice. That's where the world needs very much to go, and now we have to move the creaky institutions of that world, the governmental institutions and the financial institutions that run that world, in that direction as fast as we can. The science is done, you know. They've figured it out. The technology is mostly done. Pointing a sheet of glass at the sun, as we've said before, is now the cheapest way to make power on planet Earth. What needs to get working now are the politics and the economics of this planet. And we can do that only if we come together and demand it. That's clearly what it's going to take. Left to its own devices, our system really won't change, at least in time, to deal with all of this.
You know, one last question, which I guess is a depressing question, but I think so many of us that were so upset by Biden's decision about drilling in Alaska. Is there someone that's thinking, I mean, I'm sure you have, and other people that you've mentioned, about how to get there? I mean, when you see that, you know, it's the same story up in Alaska. Well, it's 2,500 jobs, and, you know, the indigenous community is divided. A lot of them want it, some of them don't want it. You mentioned Holland, the Interior Secretary, practically in tears. She obviously doesn't want it, but there still is this sense that we can keep going and not just burn ourselves up. And I don't know how you get that to change.
The only way to get it to, I mean, it shouldn't be so hard. We should just listen to science and say, yeah, okay, we get it, let's move. But the only way to make it change is to build movements that have enough power to counteract the power of the status quo. That's what we're doing. Hope springs eternal. It is spring training time, so we all get to think as if we might. I'll tell you this, so you guys can go enjoy this. Go find your most recent copy of Yankee Magazine. I got to spend a day with Joe Castiglione in the booth.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
The piece about it is out in the current Yankee. And,
that's great.
You know, it's a good thing to read as you're waiting for the for the gates to open and the fans coming.
By the way,
into
for
the
those who don't know, the only bigger baseball fan than the guy we talked to, Sox fan every Tuesday than John King, would be Mr. McKibben there up there in Vermont. So, Bill, as you said before, I believe it was you who said, go to thirdact.org to find out everything about the best palindromic day ever. Is that correct?
You said it. You said it. Thank you guys both as always.
Bill, it's great to see you. Bill McKibben, thank you so much, and please participate on Tuesday.
Yeah, we so appreciate your time, and thank you very much for being with us. We've been speaking with Bill McKibben, author, educator, environmentalist, co-founder of 350.org and founder of thirdact.org. That's where you go to find out about what you can do on Tuesday. He also has a great newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, and busy man, a serialized book titled The Other Cheek, an epic non-violent yarn.
Did you even know who Joe Castiglione was, who he mentioned?
The sportscaster.
He's the Red Sox radio guy.
Yeah.
He's been doing the Red Sox games for like 50 years or something.
Yeah, I did
Yankee
know.
Magazine.
Okay, coming up. Last year, comedian Fortune Feimster released an hour-long Netflix special, Good Fortune, to huge acclaim from fans and critics. She's keeping that lucky streak for fans going with her live Laugh Love tour, which talks about the Wilbur.
I'm Carol Hills from The World. Each day, our program gives you a chance to step outside our borders, to hear what's going on around the planet, and to hear how events in America are seen across Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Our producers and reporters dig deep to find stories that connect you with what's happening worldwide. That's why we call it The World. Join us.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting My Fair Lady from director Bartlett Shear and Lincoln Center Theater, who brought you The King and I and South Pacific. My Fair Lady comes to Boston this April. More at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And Snyder Pools, installing and servicing pools, spas, and saunas in Massachusetts and New Hampshire for 45 years, featuring AquaCal heat pumps and autopilot salt chlorine generators. More at snyderpools.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marty Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. How fitting for St. Patrick's Day to have someone named Fortune on our show. The great comic Fortune Feimster joins us on Zoom. By the way, she joins us on Zoom on St. Patrick's Day. Yet another person wearing absolutely no green anywhere. If you're at home this weekend looking to laugh, she has two specials available on Netflix, including last year's Good Fortune, where she reflects on a big pandemic epiphany. This particular one about our dynamic with her wife, Jack Smith.
It was my partner Jax who surprised me. She was the one outside painting our fence, rewired our electricity, fixed our plumbing. I was the one on the couch every night just watching documentaries about old people in love. Just crying in my Ugg boots. I found out, y'all, I'm not butch. Yeah.
She said it. However, if you're so inclined, you can also check her out in person. She's got a show tonight and two tomorrow at the Wilbur Theater as part of her live Live, Laugh, Love. I can't say it either.
Live,
tour.
Laugh, Love.
Tickets are sold out for Friday. That's today, but they're still opening some for Saturday. Not many. You can visit the Wilbur, WILBUR.com for more info. Fortune, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well,
I didn't wear green, but I made sure the painting in the background.
That's right.
Nice try.
Well, Fortune, when I saw you for about 20 minutes or so last night, I think you were on Comedy Central, you were in like Kelly Green. You had the big Kelly Green sweater on. That was when you were doing the Tuesday night stripper show, I believe?
Yep, that was my first half hour, which I filmed in Boston many years ago.
Okay, so
why'd you say you were a Tuesday night stripper? What'd that mean?
What's that mean?
It means that clearly, if anyone knows what I look like and sees my moves, I have some work to do. So you start at Tuesday night and you work your way up to the big night. The big night's Friday and Saturday night. You know what I mean? Tuesday night, you're still in the internship.
You also had a great section in there when you talked about telling your dad. You're from South Carolina. Is it North Carolina? South Carolina?
North Carolina.
You're from North Carolina, so that's where you get that lovely accent. But you talked in there about going out with your dad and telling him that you were gay. Tell us how you did that and what his reaction was.
Well, my dad is that typical Southern good old boy who's a good guy but doesn't like to talk about feelings, doesn't like to talk much about anything. So I had never really had a heart-to-heart with him in any capacity, and suddenly you have to reveal this, very heavy information, and you don't know how he's going to react. So I said, I just kind of ripped the Band-Aid and said, Dad, I had to tell you I'm gay, and he was just like, all right, okay. All right. Okay. And he just kept saying that over and over again for like 5 minutes. And then he was like, all right, okay, well, you want us to buy you like a men's blazer or like a top hat? And I was like, what?
Yeah, I thought it was a riot.
I know you want to talk about live, laugh, and love. Are we ever going to be able to say that right?
It's a tongue twister.
Exactly.
It's like the sign, the live, laugh, love sign that people put up in their houses they call art.
Yeah, but before we talk about that art, as you call it, I cannot believe. Did you grow up saying my dream was to do an action flick with Arnold Schwarzenegger, or no?
Everything that I'm doing in my career is beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm from a town of 10,000 people. So, in elementary school, I used to watch Arnold Schwarzenegger as part of the initiative to get kids to work out. Right. Like, I remember them rolling in when we had VCRs and playing him on these large televisions. So to be, filming an action comedy series with him was, it just didn't seem real.
But he would be a Saturday night stripper, correct?
He definitely, he's the movie star. Yeah. So yeah, he would be the Saturday night one.
But in the interview you did with the Globe about this, you were talking about crawling across the floor with explosions going on over your head. Is that really how it happens, where you're hearing these things when you're being filmed? Is that boom, boom, boom?
Yeah, I mean, they set it up as safely as possible. That we don't have actual explosions, but things are set on fire around us. They have like an entire fire team to put that stuff out immediately, and nothing that's gonna really explode. But we were army crawling across the floor, and they build these contraptions that give the sound of explosions, and that they have debris that they've built that falls all over your head. And then they set up a wall where they explode that wall behind you.
Oh,
and
good.
It's just shut up.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So this world was beyond anything I'd ever done before, so it was all new to me.
We're talking to Fortune Feimster, who's the Wilbur tonight. It's sold out. Tomorrow night is not totally sold out. But Clay, she's talking close. She's talking to us in a gray outfit with green background for St. Patrick's Day.
Well, we've all disgraced ourselves on St. Patrick's Day. I'm Irish, and I should be in green, but I'm not.
I'm going to wear green tonight.
Good.
Just for you guys, I promise.
Good.
I'm going to wear green. So I don't want to get pinched.
So Fortune, how'd you get the name Fortune? It's an unusual name.
Yeah, it's from my great grandmother. It's her maiden name.
Okay.
There were 4 sisters in that family, and they were referred to in town as the Misfortune. So
yeah,
yeah.
And people goof it up a lot. They don't get it right. They call you other things, right?
Yeah, yes, I've been called precious or treasure. anything whimsical.
Yeah.
Yeah, people get it. People know it more these days, but very early in my stand-up career, I was getting everything.
And I read where on the eve of your first public major tour was March of 2020. So the whole thing went down the drain because of the pandemic. So that must have been brutal.
Well, I mean, everybody was affected negatively, and so we all had to adjust, our expectations of what was to come. But yeah, my Sweet and Salty special had just come out on Netflix, and we put out this brand new theater tour. It was my first ever theater tour, and thanks to Netflix and that reach, the entire tour sold out. And my first show, I think, I can't remember the exact day. It was supposed to be like March 12th or 11th.
Yeah. Gosh.
And I had my bags packed, and it was the day that Tom Hanks, it was announced, it's like once he got COVID, everything
That's
else
right.
was like, oh no.
That's right.
So we were packed and ready to start that first show in Grand Rapids, and they called us that night. They go, yeah, it's not happening. And so they, it's funny in hindsight, they rescheduled everything for a month later. And we didn't leave for tour for another year.
So, Fortune, I hate to obsess on this, but now that we're talking about the painting behind you, what is that thing? I mean, it's an odd sort of, what is that? Like an impressionist? What is that thing?
Honestly, I don't know. It's in my hotel room.
Oh, it is.
And this is the desk that to set
came
to,
with the
to
room,
talk
yeah.
to you guys. It came with the room, but yeah, it looks like a watercolor.
It does.
But,
it's very nice.
When you called me out for no green, I was like, well, wait, there's something green.
So tell us about Live, Laugh, Love. What are people going to see at the Wilbur this weekend?
Well, it's a brand new hour of material. If people watch my special Good Fortune, it's nothing from that set.
Okay.
So a lot of people have asked, well, I've already seen it. I go, no, you've never seen this. It's the beginning of the tour, all new stories. I in my stand-up, I take people on a journey. I let them know about where I'm at in my life. Good Fortune ended with me getting married and trying to figure out how to be an adult. And this picks up with my honeymoon and figuring out life together as a couple. And I talk a lot more about my mom because she's become quite a staple in my comedy.
The dancer?
And she's
the dancer with the finger?
Yep. Ginger. She's the one with all the Live, Laugh, Love signs.
Yeah.
And it's a very interactive show. I'm talking to the audience a lot. I hand a microphone to people at some point. People are really enjoying the personal touch to this tour. I'm really bringing people into my show in a way I've never done before. So it's been a blast, and everybody's having such a good time. So I hope people will join me this weekend.
Do I remember correctly? Did you meet Jax in a parking lot? Is that what you said in one of your is that right?
I mean, I don't want you to call me out on my romance skills.
But isn't that what you said? What was that about?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Well,
what was that about?
It was Gay Pride in Chicago, and I joke that lesbians don't have lesbian bars anymore, so we're relegated to the parking lot.
That's what it was. That's what you said.
So yeah, the party was literally in a parking lot, and that's where I met my now wife. Chicago Pride.
Why aren't there lesbian bars anymore? That's kind of a loss, isn't it?
We've discussed that with Sue O'Connell.
Yeah.
And they're opening some here, by the way.
Yeah, but there used to be a bunch of them down in Provincetown where you go every summer. There were tons of them. But what happened? Is it because you're getting married now? Nobody wants to go out with their spouse and have a drink? It's all over?
Honestly, that is part of it. We're gay men, even if they have relationships, they're still going out. They're still, the social aspect is a big part of their life. Lesbians do have a tendency to be homebodies. They partner up, and they're like, all right, we're off the market. No need to go to the bar. We're going to hang on the couch and watch television and, drink tea. I don't know. So So it's up to us. It's up to the lesbians to keep these establishments going. So we gotta go back to the bars.
No stereotyping on this show, I should say.
Yeah. Don't forget, you got to drive the Subaru to the bar. Right?
Exactly.
That's right. I've heard that line a couple of times from you. We're talking with Fortune Feimster. She's going to be Feimster. I'm sorry. She's going to be at the Wilbur this weekend. Tonight is sold out, but there are tickets left for tomorrow. How do you get the tickets, Jim?
The Wilbur, WILBUR.com.
The Wilbur.
No, is it .org? .com, yes.
How'd this happen for you, Fortune? How'd you decide that you could get up there on a stage in front of people, I'd be a basket case, and tell stories?
I mean, you never think that, like, oh, this is something that I can do. I would see other people do it and be really impressed by them, and I had the same thought, like, oh, that seems impossible. Like, how do you stand up there with just a microphone and entertain people? But I had moved out to LA and for just work a job, and it was not for comedy. I had never done comedy, and I had no friends. It was a very difficult city to live in. It was a very difficult place to meet people. So I started taking improv classes at the Groundlings, honestly, just to make friends, just to meet people and be social. And it was my teachers there that really encouraged me to keep going. And through that process, I gained confidence of being on stage, and someone came to see me do improv, and she goes, "You're a stand-up. Why are you not doing stand-up?" And I said, "It looks so hard. I have the same thought as you." And she goes, "Just try it. Just take a class. I think you'd really do well." And so I did. I took a class, and at the end of the class, we had a performance, and I loved it. As my mom says, I got bit by the bug. And it just quickly became my passion, and I have dedicated my entire life and my time to doing that and trying to get better at it.
You know, Fortune Feimster, one last thing. I know you're not asking my advice. You said you did that to meet people. In my experience, the best place to meet people is a parking lot. Do you know what I mean?
It did work for me once.
It
did work for me once.
Hey, Fortune, it's great to meet you. Good luck this weekend. We really appreciate your time.
Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very, very much.
Fortune Feimster.
We've been speaking with comedian Fortune Feimster, and she's performing the show Live, Laugh, Love tonight and tomorrow at the Wilbur. And as Jim just said, for more information, tonight's sold out, but you can probably get in tomorrow if you hurry up. Check out thewilbur.com. Okay, after a quick break, Massachusetts Auditor Diane DiZoglio is turning her sights on non-disclosure agreements on Beacon Hill. And plus, we have to ask Callie, here it is, St. Patrick's Day, which fast food fish witch reigns supreme? That is next. GBH's Callie Crossley joins us for these stories and more. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. And we are also at youtube.com/GBH News, streaming live.
The Shattuck is the primary surgical hospital for people imprisoned in Massachusetts, and there have been a growing number of complaints about one of its doctors.
She stands out in pretty serious botched surgeries that have made people permanently disabled.
What she did to me, it's a criminal act.
From the GBH News Center for Investigative Reporting, I'm Jennifer McKim. Our story, Under Her Knife, malpractice claims against a Shattuck Hospital surgeon. Available on demand at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support for GBH comes from you and Mass General Cancer Center, dedicated to providing the latest therapies and cancer specialists who are experienced in your cancer. When you hear the word cancer, their team is ready. Learn more at massgeneral.org/cancer. And Emerson Colonial Theater, presenting Into the Woods, the Tony and Grammy Award-winning Broadway musical is coming to Boston March 21st through April 2nd. Tickets at emersoncolonialtheater.com.
Trusted. Local. News. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. what matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Margery Egan, live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. Joining us now at the Boston Public Library, wearing green glasses, is GBH's Callie Crossley. Finally, some green. She's the host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley. You can catch that Sunday nights right here at 89.7 at 6 o'clock. She's also the host of Basic Black, which airs Fridays at 7:30. You can hear her commentaries, also called Callie Commentaries, on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Hello there, Callie Crossley.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Love the glasses.
Let me just tell you.
Why are you wearing green, Marjorie?
I'm a disgrace.
Sad.
As an Irish American.
I was gonna say.
I totally forgot. I should be wearing green.
my God.
I know. It's bad. It's very bad. But that's not all the accolades. We have just learned that the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce has made Callie Crossley from GBH one of their distinguished Bostonians at their annual meeting on May 16th. And listen to the group. Brian Moynihan, the chair of the board executive of Bank of America, and John Drew, founder and chairman of the Drew Company, and Callie Crossley of GBH. You little hot ticket.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
So do you have to give a talk, or what do you do?
No, they do this very nice videos of everybody and have other people speak on your behalf, and then, so we'll see what other people say when you get there.
Now, I've been to a few of these before. We were over at a big dig one at the Kennedy Library, right?
Yeah.
You got a big award there.
Oh, that was Mass Humanities.
Yeah.
Mass Humanities. You gotten any awards, Jim?
Yeah, Most Improved Camper at Camp Bar. 2 years in a row.
Okay, not that we're holding it
That was
against
it.
you or anything, Callie. Not that we're not jealous or anything.
Really.
Okay, let's get back to a story that I am really quite excited about.
All right.
The new state auditor, Diana DiZoglio, who used to be up in the legislature, is going after the legislature for these non-disclosure agreements, which apparently many people have had to sign to shut up about nefarious things that happened in the State House, including sexual harassment.
Right.
I gotta say,
Not just State House, by the way, all of state government.
all of state government.
Right.
I am very happy about this.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree. It's as it happens, I just ran into state auditor in the hallway over at GBH where she was talking politics, and we were having a conversation about the fact that why is it that people are surprised that when you run on something, this is what she said she was going to do while running, that she now does it, and they're surprised. So that's
exactly like Biden saying no drilling on federal lands. Exact same concept.
Exactly. Right. So, but this is what she said she was going to do. This, as we know, she was a victim of this, and so it's very sensitive to it. And the bottom line is, how much taxpayer money is being spent as really hush money is really what it's all about. So,
and how much abuse is being covered up by this money.
Well,
I mean, her situation, by the way, she was a state rep, then a state senator. Before she was a state rep, she was a staff person.
Right.
And she alleged that there was a lot of innuendo, a lot of harassment, that sort of stuff. She complained. Ultimately, she was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And to her credit, and quite a bit of courage, I should say, she violated the non-disclosure agreement, I think on the floor of the House. I'm not sure it was the Senate. And once she was elected to the Senate, her crusade was to ban these things on Beacon Hill. The Senate voted overwhelmingly in favor of the ban. The House, which is where it happened against her, never did. But I think this is something a lot of people can connect with.
Well, there's just no excuse for it. I mean, we went through this with the Catholic Church for decades.
Exactly
they had these non-disclosure agreements signed by children who were raped by priests, and they signed these. And so no one knew it was happening, or very few people knew it was happening.
Same thing with Gretchen Carlson and Fox.
Right.
Exactly,
Fox
exactly.
News,
This is a big deal and good for her, and I think that the legislature, which has been pushing back on this to some degree.
Not just this. I mean, her other thing is she wants
records.
to audit the legislature in general, and there's a real constitutional question if she can do it. And it seems from the early coverage of this, they're just going to try to stonewall this whole thing, which I'm assuming is going to build public momentum for her cause, don't you think?
Well, don't we talk all the time about how in many cases you can't even find out how your legislator voted?
Yes.
No.
So what is the possible excuse for that?
I don't know. I know. It's really, yeah. I mean, so it's going to be interesting because I think because she took that stand and everybody didn't think that she might not have won, she's not beholden to anybody. right? To say, now I need to change my mind, and maybe we don't have to do it, or maybe we do. I don't know.
In terms of beholden, the interesting it's also going to play out here, this may be inside baseball, but it appeals to me. Do you know who funds the auditor's office? The legislature. That she wants to audit and wants to ban NDAs. And while we read in the Globe that in her budget, the Governor Healy, increased her funding for the auditor's office by $4 million, the notion that the legislature is going to adequately fund her to essentially take a look at them is, I think, an iffy proposition.
Well, then it's up to those of us in the Fourth Estate to point out that in the wake of the Me Too movement and moment, it would be pretty disgusting for the legislature to shut down someone who has survived a sexual harassment thing, was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and is fighting against them. I mean, come on.
Well, I think it goes one step back. How about the voters who put in the people in the legislature to say that's not appropriate and we're not going to appreciate it if you go to try to cut our budget or do something like that?
It's just like, and people have no idea how much this costs them. And we have these situations in the police department
where people still don't know.
They still don't know, and cops have done some terrible things, and what they do is they settle these cases for millions and millions of dollars. So I don't know how much the legislature has spent on this, but I think she will have the public behind her on this because it's just a no-brainer.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there'll be a lot of discussion. a lot.
Well, you know who's done, I have to say, which is, I'm really glad to hear Adam has her on. I didn't know that on tonight's show. The Globe has been relentless about this. Since she made this announcement, there have been editorials, there have been op-eds, there's been a lot of coverage. The only way she's going to get anywhere with this is if, as you say, the Fourth Estate, if the media decides no one has any idea what the auditor does. They may remember, a few may remember her promise, but in the grand scheme of things, it's mayors, governors, people like that. Press has got to keep a focus on this thing if they care about it.
And as we were speaking in the hallway, she says, not only do people not know what the auditor does, they don't know the breadth of the powers of the auditor either, so she can employ in this instance.
We're talking to Kelly Crossley, who won yet another award that we did not.
Okay, so...
we ever gotten an award, the two of us? I mean, together, we've been doing this for a quarter century. Have we ever gotten any?
I'm sure you have.
I don't think so.
I got one back in '91. It was a long time ago.
That was the best. No, that was the best quipster, wasn't that what?
No, that was the human rights people, the gay.
Oh, wait a second. You were picked for the best religious columnist.
That's right. That's right.
Columnist on religion
I forgot
in the United
about that.
States
That's
of
right.
America.
How do you forget about it?
I was number
huge.
one. The Wall Street Journal, New York
There you
Times,
go.
Religious News Service.
That was
I was
a big deal.
absolutely thrilled about that, but no one knew it happened, Callie. It was no one
How
knew
do you
it happened.
forget about that?
I have my little plaque. It's right in the front door, so you can't miss it when you come in the house.
And knowing Marty, so I think that's part of the problem.
It's somewhere in my house. But talk about a group that has lost public trust because they deserve to lose public trust. There's an effort afoot to adopt a code of ethics for the Supreme Court of the United States so that, for example, Clarence Thomas would have to recuse himself from votes about overturning the election and the January 6th mess because his wife was very involved in
She was making phone calls to the chief of staff.
Yes.
The president.
So, I mean, does this have a chance in hell? Do you think we're going to get anywhere with this one?
No, but I like the fact that there are groups that are articulating the fact that the
Can you
the
pull your
ethics
mic up just a little? Yeah, there you go.
I like the fact that there is a number of groups, not just one, who are looking at the Supreme Court and saying, there are ethical concerns about the way that you're conducting your business, and we can see it. And if you're going to be the nation's highest court, you need to, institute some ethical parameters and then follow them. I mean, you read about what they get away with, and I think I have to make certain that I have fewer conflicts of interest in groups I'm a part of than they do.
Well, including our employment here, by the way.
I mean, it's just insane, and they're making decisions. And to your point, the Clarence Thomas thing is just come on.
And by the way, just for people who say, well, that's aberrational. A couple of weeks ago, we discussed this with Judge Gertner, Nancy Gertner, a lot. There was the case where we learned that Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice's wife, was a headhunter who had gotten jobs at law firms for a bunch of lawyers and made a ton of money doing it, which is perfectly fine, for lawyers whose firms appeared before her husband in the Supreme Court. And he is deciding cases where his family, he and his wife, but his family, are making hundreds of thousands of dollars in finder's fees That's perfectly fine. And the problem here is they've got to decide to do this themselves. It's sort of like your pet thing about term limits. The only way term limits ever comes to Congress, Marty, as you know, is if Congress decides to vote for term limits. Same deal with a code of ethics. It's only if the Supreme Court decides to police itself. And this is the same lesson as Diana DiZoglio. The only way this happens is if the press relentlessly talks about the lack of ethics among so many members of the court, so there's enough pressure for them to do it.
I think they're unmoved by it, though, because you just wouldn't be as blatant as you are.
Well,
I mean, the fact
I think
that
they are unmoved too, but Roberts has said things, hey, just because you disagree with our opinion doesn't mean that we're out to left field or whatever, but he's kind of missing the whole point. It's not just disagreeing with opinions, it's thinking that they're corrupt.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think about the fact that I watch a lot of CBS and they have a number of authors on that are, in their company, and they disclose, of course. Oh, by the way, here is so-and-so, and they are, they were published by an arm of our company. They don't have to disclose anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And it's weird. I think it's weird for them to go to dinners, like at the Federalist Society. That's a very conservative group, which is, give credit where credit is due. They had been brilliant in organizing justices.
Yes,
strategizing for, what's the guy's name, Leo Leonard or Leonard Leo or something?
Leo.
He's a big Catholic guy.
Last name. He was former head of the Federalist Society.
And they have, ever since Roe v. Wade, been plotting, to get more conservative justices in the Supreme Court. So they've done it brilliantly, but there's something weird about they're going to address these groups.
Well, wait, there's another example that's much more dramatic that relates to Dobbs. There's that guy, Reverend Schenck, the white evangelical, who talked about the head of Hobby Lobby had a private dinner arranged with Justice Alito, who wrote the opinion that was leaked, by the way, and at least according to Reverend Schenck, the dinner guest of the justice was told what the decision was going to be, and from there we found out about the decision ahead of time. Apparently that is perfectly ethical, and even though they deny it. And by the way, and the final thing, it just occurred to me, about the leak. The leak of the Dobbs decision. Remember the policing, the investigation of that? If you're a staff person in the Supreme Court, you had to sign a sworn affidavit.
That's right.
If you're a justice on the Supreme Court, you just had a two-way conversation, they said, with the investigator who works for you on the Supreme Court. So this is a really, really big deal.
Bad. And it's bad, and I sometimes I just don't even think that people understand the fullness of their power, because you get a lot of people, particularly around voting time, to say, Supreme Court. These are the examples I try to bring up and say, this is not just one case. It ends up extending across the board, and it allows everybody else below them to say, well, if they can get away with it, I can too. I mean, it's really...
even though we don't win any awards, we should win an award for? I'm serious. The only show that I know every presidential cycle that we've been on the air, and I guess it's 6 presidential cycles, where both of us have said the single most important factor you should consider when voting for a president is who he or she is going to pick to the Supreme Court. Because as I said just yesterday, I believe Coney Barrett is 50. I believe Kavanaugh and who's the third pick from Gorsuch are the 3 Trump appointees are in their young or mid-50s, which means realistically they can serve through maybe 8 presidential elections because they have lifetime tenure. As many do. That's right.
And I don't get the sense that the Democrats are organizing in any kind of way like the Republicans did. I don't get the sense that they're doing that.
Well, if you're saying, do they have a Federalist Society? They don't.
They don't.
So, and that's a pretty powerful group, as you've said. Yeah.
So let's talk about, we were talking about this idea that, Biden has that TikTok should have to be sold and other people have said it should be banned.
It's a security threat.
Banned in certain government agencies and stuff like that. I thought it was fascinating that, like Steve Jobs and a lot of these Silicon Valley people said they didn't let their kids use the internet. Well, the guy that runs TikTok doesn't let his kid have a TikTok account.
Now,
so what does that tell us?
Well, it tells us everything. Come on. Of course it's... Now, he says it's because of the law, and they just, if you're below 13 and his kids are, that you can't, that his kids are like 6 or something, 6 or 7, and he says, we absolutely do not allow it. But, in the United States, you get a restrictive version, but you can still use it. But the guy who's head of the whole thing, the TikTok CEO, says, nope, my kids will not be using it. And I did a piece earlier because there's a number of lawsuits in progress concerned about the addictiveness of it. This is before we got to the security threatness of it that people are discussing now. But it is quite a phenomenon. And as I said when I was writing about it, regarding the addictiveness of it, I don't subscribe to it. But if I get on one video, somebody sends you a video,
Me too.
You can go down the rabbit hole so easily.
Oh yeah, the puppy, the puppy bowls.
Yeah,
dogs and cats.
I can do the dance things, and
The
then
dance
I'm here, there, and everywhere. And you'll look up, and it's been an hour, and you're, what are you doing?
I mean,
and I love the life hacks. I have to stay off that. Life hacks to me are the best.
Wait a minute. What are life hacks?
Well, they say, you've been doing it wrong. How you cook your spaghetti, or how you do
that's right.
all kinds of ways to do stuff better. And if I get started on that, I'm hours into it.
Well, it's it's like clickbait online. Yeah. But to me, this is like 100 times more powerful than clickbait online because you're watching this in action. And
Right.
It's just
there are only 113 million users in the United States, so it's not that big a deal. By the way, you know what's interesting about that piece? I can't remember where it was written about TikTok.
Parent Herald.
Not only did the guy who's the CEO, whose name I don't know, say that his own kids didn't do it because okay, wherever they live, I don't know if it's China, but wherever they live, under 13, you're not allowed to have an account. That story also said in every single place where TikTok does exist, which is every place, kids under 13 are banned with one exception, the United States of America.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the discussion is about whether or not it's a security threat or not. And I think when you hear security threat, I always say you're thinking like, F-14s or 16s or whatever, and somebody in a room with little stuff. But it's a security threat for them to scrape all the information from everybody and piece that together.
We talked about it yesterday. Do you think anybody in this country cares anymore? I do. About their personal security and privacy? I do.
I do too.
I think the two of us are outliers.
Yeah.
Your attitude is the genie's out of the bottle. Long done.
Well, I think the genie is out of the bottle about privacy. What I worry about, though, is these stories we're seeing more and more about particularly young women, young teenage girls with depression and anxiety, and they are so self-conscious because they can't. I guess what bothers me is that when we were little, a million years ago, if somebody was bullying you at school, you were having a tough time, you came back to your home at night and you were safe in your home.
But you're not now.
Now they can just get right through the windows and the walls with everything that's online, and there's no respite from the drama. I think that's really tough.
Except not using it. We've already discussed that's not happening.
No.
So, and it's more interesting the younger you are, I think.
By the way, and you've mentioned this before, there's a local angle on this you can't ever get away from. The suicide of young Phoebe Prince, who was in her teens in South Hadley, was it, Massachusetts, who was not only bullied physically, in person, but cyberbullied, which is apparently what put this young kid over the line. That was about a decade ago.
It was a decade ago.
At least
and now everybody's got smartphones, and they're up until 1 o'clock in the morning with their smartphones in their rooms doing who knows what.
Well, and you're being notified every 2 seconds about the latest this or that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be off of it, you have to concentrate in a huge way, and most people aren't choosing to do that.
So, Kelly, when one of my kids was young, one of the biggest mistakes I ever made on a gift is I bought her a wall-mounted version of Frankie the Fish.
I have a wall-mounted
By the way,
version
the
of
first time Frankie the Fish sang the following, it was fine.
Yeah.
The 10 millionth time that Frankie the Fish sang it, here's Frankie the Fish singing McDonald's iconic Filet-O-Fish. Here it is.
Give me back that Filet-O-Fish.
You remember this?
Yes.
What if it were you hanging up on this wall? If it were you in that sandwich, you wouldn't be laughing at all. So give me back that Filet-O-Fish. Give me that.
Now, why am I playing that, Kelly Crossley?
Well, because it's the end of Lent. And people, and you're supposed to be eating, if you're Catholic particularly,
I would
eating
not
fish,
be, but thank you.
Instead of the St. Patrick's Day meal of pastrami, except there's been an exception. One of the cardinals gave a little dispensation around here.
Yeah.
But the point is, what's
the
the magazine that rated the fast food places,
Yahoo!
the best fishes, wherever it is,
yes.
and last out of 7 was McDonald's Filet-O-Fish. What came in number 1?
Wendy's.
Yeah.
And I think no
Panko
Wendy's,
crusted.
Yeah, there's no Wendy's around here. I can't.
They're not?
No, I don't. Is there? There must be somewhere.
I
But
love a good fast food filet of fish. By the
I
way.
do
Is there
too.
a Wendy's
I do
on
too.
Route 9 between like
Is
Newton
there?
and Framingham or Natick or something? I thought there used to be anyway.
Well,
Having
I
stopped.
haven't
People
seen it.
say Wendy's is better, the best fast food.
Oh, it is
Yeah.
because they're very good. But I also enjoy what's it, Popeyes.
Chick
I know,
fried
yeah,
chicken?
yeah, I love. Well, I haven't even had that sandwich.
came
but
in
I love
third.
it. I know, but McDonald's is dead last. But I would bet you they're not dead last in sales. I'm
Well, I
gonna
would say
guess
it's right.
that.
You know,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
the reason Wendy's rates so high with their base is
Yeah.
because like a hamburger actually has meat in it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the line Johnny Carson, for you young people, who was a host of the Tonight Show, got sued many years ago? I don't think they do it anymore. The Golden Arches used to say underneath it, how many billions of hamburgers
Yes,
sold?
yes.
And Johnny Carson comes out to do his monologue one day. I'm going to get it slightly wrong, but the gist of it is, did you see the sign outside the McDonald's? Unbelievable. They sold their 100th billion hamburger. He says, I don't know, that's got to be at least a quarter pound of meat. and see, obviously, some people thought it was funny, but apparently McDonald's did not, and he was sued. I have no idea what was the outcome of the thing. So, Kelly Crossy, what are you doing this weekend there?
Believe it or not, brace yourself. It's nearly 600 days till November 2024.
Excellent.
That's all?
Yeah. So, but the campaign has started in New Hampshire and around the country. You've heard people in Iowa already. So we bring back our series, our seasonal voter series called New Hampshire Insiders, to start talking about what's going on in New Hampshire with regard to the presidential campaigners. Also, of course, this year we have to discuss the whole fight about First in the Nation primary, and courtesy of our friends over to NBC 10, the impact of those libertarians known as free staters. So that's part of our conversation. And the other part is, some people may watch CBS and be familiar with CBS correspondent Michelle Miller.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
written a memoir. Her life is fascinating.
I saw that.
I mean, it's fascinating. It's it's a fabulous book, and it's just, you know, you're just going, wow, this
This
is
is
a
the
life.
one where the mother
Yes.
wants nothing to do with her.
Her mother walked away after hours after she was born.
And it's incredible
Yeah,
because you
yes.
see her, and she's such a great broadcaster,
Yeah.
and seems so together.
I know, it really impacted her.
I mean,
Yeah,
when
it-
your mother takes off, but she seems to have put
it
her
was really
life.
something.
Yeah.
And here's just an interesting fact that has nothing to do with that, but the father who was involved with this mother who walked off, her father, was the physician at the site of Bobby Kennedy's assassination.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was
And
interviewed, right?
He was interviewed, and he had to argue with them to say that, yes, I am a surgeon, because they said, you know, black man, you can't be a doctor. He said, is a doctor in the house? He said, yes, I'm a doctor, and they wouldn't let him in, but he finally got in. And he literally was cradling his head as he was dying.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so, I mean, her life is just
And a
amazing.
wonderful man,
Yeah,
because he
yes.
took the responsibility, right?
Yes,
And the
yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's that. I
And
gotta
it's
read that
very
book.
well written. So
Is it
you'll
very well
enjoy it.
written?
Yeah, it is very well.
Have you done the new Michelle book, the new Michelle Obama book?
I have not yet.
Yeah,
no.
because I got to get that too, because I liked
Yeah.
her first one so
Yeah,
much.
me too. It was
And I love
beautifully
the way
written.
she made fun of her husband.
Beautifully written.
You know when you should read it? When she's the nominee. That's a perfect
Yeah.
time to be reading it,
yeah.
don't you think?
Not
Thank you,
happening,
Callie.
Jim.
Love the glasses.
Okay.
Callie Crossley.
Thank you very much. We've been speaking with Callie Crossley, host of Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, which you can catch Sunday nights right here at 89.7 at 6. You also replay. Is it Thursday night at 9?
Yes, Thursday night at 9.
Yeah, Thursday night at 9, which is often when I hear it, Thursday night at 9. It's replayed. If you
You
don't
know what
catch it.
doesn't play Thursday night at 9? Because she's playing
Yeah, we used
Thursday
to
night
play.
at 9?
We got knocked off.
Us.
You know why?
Why?
Because she's like the star of the Chamber
Exactly
of Commerce
right.
and gotten all these awards, Jim, and you and I have gotten squat. But anyway.
You got the top religion writer.
I did. That's right.
I don't want to hear that.
89.7 at 6 o'clock on Sunday nights, and replays Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. Callie is also the host of Basic Black, which airs Fridays at 7:30, and you can hear her Callie commentaries on Mondays for GBH's Morning Edition. Thanks a lot, Callie.
Thanks, Kelly.
Coming up, the players from Metropolitan Chorale joined this week in a performance with the Celtic group Fellswater. Join us for some really terrific music, special for St. Patrick's Day. That's going to be next on 89.7 GBH Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at facebook.com/GBH News.
I'm Carol Hills from The World. Each day, our program gives you a chance to step outside our borders, to hear what's going on around the planet, and to hear how events in America are seen across Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. Our producers and reporters dig deep to find stories that connect you with what's happening worldwide. That's why we call it The World. Join us.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion, with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And Boston Ballet, presenting Don Quixote, returning for the first time in more than 10 years, featuring choreography by Rudolf Nureyev and a score by Ludwig Minkus, on stage until March 26th. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. It's that time, live Music Fridays, thank God, at the Boston Public Library. This time around, we're joined by players from the Metropolitan Chorale with accompaniment from members of the Celtic music outfit Fellswater. Two groups are collaborating for one night only. That's tomorrow night at 7:30. We'll give you all the details on their show, Celtic Crosswords. For more information and to get tickets, go to Metropolitan Chorale, ALE, metropolitanchorale.org. The music will come a couple of times in just a few minutes, but first we're joined by the Metropolitan Chorale's music director, a friend of ours, Lisa Graham, as well as a guy who's going to become a friend of ours, Chris Myers from Fellswater. Chris, great to meet you. Lisa, great to have you.
As well. Thank you for having us.
Top of the afternoon.
Well, Lisa, we've
I
been...
like that. That was good.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.
Going a little Irish.
We've been involved with you guys, done stuff with you guys, heard you perform a million times over the Metropolitan Chorale, and it's just great.
People are still talking about it.
People are still talking about Jim sang a solo. You know, it was a little tough, but we got through it. But anyway, I don't think of you in terms of Irish music, so what's the deal here?
The deal is, I'm about to reveal something that nobody knows, and that is I had a DNA test. And it turns out, no kidding, I am 100% British Irish.
Wow.
I didn't know that was even possible.
Wait, is this a true story?
No, it is absolutely true. Yeah.
So what did you all of a sudden have an epiphany and you got in touch with Fellswater? I mean,
got in touch with
what
my
happened?
inner Celtic. No, we've been thinking about doing a Celtic concert for a while. You know, Boston has the largest Irish population in the United States.
We do?
We do.
I should have known that.
A great, very rich history culturally with that population. And so we thought, now's the time. We usually do a March concert. Why not do one with that?
And how did Fellswater, first of all, tell us about Fellswater, and then you can tell us how the connection was made.
So Fellswater is a 7-person Celtic band. We're not Irish music, we're Celtic, so we do all sorts of stuff. And they formed in 2008 and started out with 4 people, and now we're up to 7. And
what do you mean they? You're talking like you're not part of it. What do you mean they?
Well, when I was not a member initially.
Oh, you weren't at the beginning.
No,
I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
I was an adjunct. I got glommed in. And we've been. Most of us have real jobs, and this is our side gig, and we just do it. We love playing the music, and we love playing for audiences, and it's just a lot of fun.
Chris, you just distinguished Celtic from Irish, so what's the difference?
Yeah, so Ireland is a Celtic country, and of course there's Scotland and Brittany, and there's Celtic heritage all over the place, like in Galicia and in Canada and all over
Maritimes,
the place. Boston.
Yeah.
So you should also
places,
tell us about the Metropolitan Chorale, which by the way, we're just talking about this collaboration, but tell us about the group.
Well, the group itself has been around for quite a long time.
They have been around for a long time.
We have been around.
Yes.
We were originally the Brookline Chorus, but because we began in Brookline as a few singers, and now we're about 80 to 100, depending on the concert. We have just a few here today. And we actually met through Boston Pops, because we performed with the holiday tour with Keith and the orchestra. And I was looking for a Celtic band, and you all play, or part of you play with the 4th of July show.
With the Middlesex County Volunteers, Fifes and Drums.
Fifes and Drums. So we have
a
musical connection.
That's actually how
altogether.
Fellswater was born out of the Middlesex County Volunteers.
What kind
Fifes
of
and
real
Drums.
jobs, to use your words, these people have?
I'm a computer programmer. My wife, who's a singer in the band, is a massage therapist. We've got Dave, you're some sort of X-ray tech, right?
What do you do again? You work at some Boston Medical Center? Excellent. What are you his wife? You're not? What do you do?
I'm a musician.
You're a real musician. And what's your deal? He's also a musician. I'm sorry. Yes. I know you can't hear those people. So, we have Brian O'Donovan, our colleague, on a lot. And I have to say, Brian, who we love with a passion
Absolutely.
and wish him all the good luck in the world in this health struggle he's gone through. He has elevated at least my consciousness about Celtic music, which I didn't even like when I first met Brian O'Donovan, and now I'm in love with. But it seems to me it's not just me, that the profile of Celtic music is spreading well beyond its traditional confines. Is it not?
I think that's true, and I heard this recently, and someone's going to have to fact check me, but that there are more people that claim Irish heritage that are not in Ireland than there are in Ireland. And I
believe
think
that.
And I think Boston is, it's definitely a mecca for that kind of thing. And I would absolutely credit Brian with my personal interest in it,
because
I've been listening to his show for however long he's been on, more than 20 years at this point, right?
Yeah.
We actually played for him here. Fellswater played for one of the concerts during the Saturday show when he was doing the show from the library. Yeah, it was fun.
By the way, Chris is in green, and Lisa, who just found out she's Irish, is in red. So I'm sorry to obsess with this particular thing today. So what is the
But
first...
that makes such sense what you said, because I think there were 6 million people in Ireland during the famine, and I think either 1 million died and another million left, or it might have even been more than that, but there was massive departure, obviously.
And then
from
they
Ireland.
thrived.
And then they thrived, that's right.
In fact, we're doing a piece on the concert about the very first signer of the statute.
The first person to walk through the gates at Ellis Island
Ellis
was actually
Island.
a young Irish girl.
Wow.
There's a song, yeah.
So you're going to do a couple of selections for us. We'll talk about the event tomorrow and what else is happening, how to get tickets in a minute, but we want to hear music. What's the first thing you're performing?
First thing we're doing is Celtic dance, and it's kind of like a cappella music meets folk music. It's a reel, which is an Irish dance, so everybody should feel free to move and clap and be part of it. It could be in a pub,
And Chris, when you get back, even though you have no idea what your bandmates do for a living, you can introduce them indivially. You can
Absolutely.
do that? Great.
Yeah, I can do that.
So if you can quietly take your headsets off, place them on the table, and walk over to your positions, we'll hear you in a minute. By the way, you can get tickets and more information. Lisa and Chris will fill you in much more than this in a minute. If you go to Metropolitan Chorale, chorale is spelled CHORALE.org. And we are now about to hear the Metropolitan Chorale in concert, so to speak, with Fellswater. Welcome to you all. Let's do it.
Ding ding a ding ding a ding da, ding ding a ding ding a ding da da, ding a ding a ding ding a ding da, ding ding a ding da da.
That was great. That was great.
Absolutely. We have the best music in here every Friday, and that was absolutely fantastic. So tell us, what is going to go on at the Kennedy
Well,
Library?
first, let's hear who the members of Fellswood are.
I'm sorry.
Who are they?
So starting from stage right on the cello, who just ran away, that's Dave Cabral.
And then the woman who denies that she's your wife. Go ahead. Who's that person?
That is Betsy K. Tudot.
Hi, Betsy.
And on percussion, we have Kyle Forstoff.
Hey, Kyle. Good to meet you. Congratulations. Thank you all. And we'd introduce all your singers, but there are too many of them.
So many.
How many are singing tomorrow?
I think 80.
Oh, that is great.
Yeah.
Oh, that is great. And this is like 15 or 20, so you can imagine how incredible that's going to be. I'm sorry, Margie.
No, I was just going to say, so tell us more about this. It's going to be the Kennedy Library.
Yeah, what a great venue. Essentially, you're looking out on the water.
Oh, that's
it's all glass.
beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And obviously, the Irish Catholic connection with the Kennedy family. We thought a perfect venue. So we'll be there tomorrow night, and the whole program is both combined numbers with the band, and some with just the choir, some with just the band, and we plan on having an absolute blast.
Well, there's also more to the program, which you're supposed to say. Kevin Cullen is interviewing do you know about this?
I do.
Apparently not. Okay, as you were
do.
about to say, what else is in the program, Lisa Graham?
Well, we're doing some very, very popular tunes, as people might expect, like Danny Boy, Whiskey in the Jar, but also a lot of tons of like really fun music that probably people aren't as familiar with.
That is not what I meant at all. What I meant was, in addition to the musical performance, isn't this part of a whole shtick where Kevin Cullen from the Globe, am I wrong about this?
No,
is interviewing
Why
the
don't you
foreign
explain it,
minister
Jim, since you seem to know
of
so much about
Ireland
it?
to honor the 60th anniversary of JFK going to Ireland?
This is
Are you in touch
happening.
with this or not? I mean, what's happening?
It is happening in sort of relay. So that's actually happening before the concert,
see.
and then folks may come over. So it happened. It just happened to be that way. We didn't plan it, but it's a wonderful circumstance that we're
Kevin
both
Cullen,
there.
by the way, wrote a column in the paper today about how on this St. Patrick's Day is on a Friday, and during Lent, Catholics supposedly aren't supposed to eat meat during Lent, but how everybody kind of got a pass because it's corned beef and cabbage, right, on St. Patrick's Day. But the Bishop of Providence,
I know,
this
it's
two-big
just
guy,
incredible.
says, oh, no, you have to all ask permission to eat your corned beef. I mean, what a killjoy. He's going to be gone April 1st.
He's one of our favorite bishops, too. You remember what he was doing?
Well, he was not very good on the sex abuse trial.
Well, also that scandal, the school that was that was a different
Worcester.
guy. Oops, Worcester. Thank you very much for correcting me on that kind of thing.
Okay, so you're going to have this thing in front of the glass, and where do people get tickets for this event?
Very good question, because you can't actually buy them at the venue. You need to buy them online, either at our website, right? You can't buy it when you get to the library. You can buy it on your phone, right?
Okay.
Anywhere, right?
So if you come to the library,
if you come
and
to the
you're
library,
caught short-
ticketless, you can use a smart device, but you can't buy a physical ticket at the
But
library.
there's a sliding scale, too, is there not?
Yes, there is.
$0 to $45.
Am I
You
saying
give nothing.
things
You
that
don't
you were
want to give
totally
nothing.
unfamiliar with?
No,
till I
I-
said them aloud? You're looking at me blankly. There is a sliding
That's just
scale.
my
isn't
face.
there?
That's just my resting face.
Okay.
But you know, this is an incredible amount of work. I see a woman back there. I've seen her before. That she was in another concert here at the library.
That's
right?
because she's in the
Kristen McIntyre?
Metropolitan
Yes.
Chorale.
She's
Yes.
the president of the chorale.
But you were someplace else here at the library too, because I've seen you before here, right? And with another group of singers.
She has no idea what you're talking about either.
Yes, she
This is
does.
going well so
Yes,
far,
she does.
by the way.
But the point is, this takes an incredible amount of practice and effort and hours of people's time to put together something like this. So people are obviously very passionate about this.
And the process of the rehearsal is really interesting with us because we're sort of classically trained
it's
musicians.
very organic, right? So when we decided that we were going to collaborate on pieces, we're like, well, do you have parts for us? And she's like, no. And we didn't have parts for them either. So it's like we had to write choral parts for them, and we had to figure out how we were going to accompany. When you get a choral score, it usually just has a piano score underneath, and as you can see, we clearly do not have a piano.
No, there's no piano there.
So we had to kind of figure out what to do to fill in the space.
It's very much the folk tradition.
I'm sorry, what's that?
It's just very much about the folk tradition is kind of, scrapping it together and trying things.
Can I also pick up on something you said about the venue? Last time we were at this particular room where they're performing was when Callie got her other award.
Spectacular.
And I don't know, I assume you feel the same way. The environment is huge. when you're doing what you guys are doing. And I assume you're performing right in front of that glass wall.
Right in
and
front
if
of the
people
glass
haven't
wall.
been there, if you haven't been to the county library, it's great to begin with. But this performance venue, where the whole wall from floor to ceiling, which has got to be, I don't know, 30 feet high or some such thing, is just glass out looking out on the harbor. It's just such a perfect backdrop for people like you guys.
You know, one last thing before you play again, Chris. I mean, we talked about this before, and I've said this before, but why not say it again? One of the things that always strikes me about Irish music, you know, the fiddling and the banjos and all that kind of stuff, is that you go to bars there, and people just kind of walk in off the street, and some of them are really good, and some of them aren't so good, but they just play. It's kind of just one of the neatest things.
Yeah, there's a kind of a common language that, you know, there's hundreds and hundreds of, if not thousands of tunes. And, you know, if you know some of them, you play along. If you don't, you figure it out as you go, or you just make a terrible noise. But it's still, everyone's enjoying a Guinness and they're dancing.
But that's unusual, isn't it? In Celtic music, is that unusual? I mean,
I don't think in that vein. I mean, there's pubs all over Boston. They do the same thing. It's not just in Ireland. I mean, all over the world, actually. You can go to Japan and find an Irish session.
You know, we should also say, if you weren't watching on Facebook.com/GBH News or whatever it is, GBH News, you really move when you're doing this thing.
How can you
Lisa.
not?
Yeah,
I
you really
mean,
do. Well, you really move whatever you're conducting.
That's,
You
I
do.
guess so.
That's part of the shtick, right?
I don't know. It's probably not textbook, you know, but I am moved by the music. When you got a dance song, I mean, it's you can't help it. The next one is a folk song, though. It's a little more lyrical.
What is it?
It's called Bona Lahartka. It's
What?
actually, yep. It's in Irish, which is a language we've had to study and learn for the concert. And it's about a one-horned cow and possibly a one-horned sheep. Metaphors for drinking, maybe. But it's a folk song. Children learn it. It gets more and more weird as we go along, but you'll probably have to come to the concert to get the whole story.
Can you say it one more time?
Bona Lahartka.
Can you say that, please?
No, I can't.
Thank you. Bon a la carte.
There's a lot of
Is that right?
extra
Is that close?
consonants in there
Thank
that you wouldn't expect.
I just did it.
Go ahead.
Bon a la carte.
Very good.
It's very close.
Close
Yeah,
enough.
close enough.
Lisa Graham and the Metropolitan Corral
listen to
and
this.
what?
This is from Connor in Roxbury. He says, my partner and I met a member of Fellswater, Jim, out walking our dog. What a nice guy. There you go.
We don't care if they're nice. We only care if they can play. And apparently they can. Fellswater and Chris, Lisa Graham, and the Metropolitan Corral, we're thrilled to have you go back and
Thank you.
do another one for us.
We're featuring, by the way, Wes Hunter, tenor, on
in this particular
this
thing,
next
he has
one.
one of the best bald heads I've ever seen.
I
Is
mean,
that the guy?
he is absolutely
It is
gorgeous. Yep.
really, it is
Wonderful
one of the
voice.
best I've ever seen. Congratulations on that.
And
that's what he wants to be known
Kyle
for.
is playing the boron, which is the drum you see there.
Hey there. You were here before. You're part of Fellswater. Do you know that? You do. Okay. I just want to be clear. Okay, you two, put these down gently, and we will hear the Metropolitan Corral once again in concert with Fellswater. Marjorie will tell you again in a minute, but if you want information or to purchase tickets for tomorrow night, which sounds like a whole great program from beginning to end at the beautiful JFK Library, metropolitancorral.org. Here they are once again, Fellswater and Metropolitan Corral.
Hiskashna tena shabakyak makerde dirmero delan ovarana hina makchahar atalm hirla haili yasba tobak avi arangaira bo nalaharka bo shiansana verarkak bo nalaharka Bohor men yadag zni yadag vaidi. Honak sa berahai, honak karaindi, here sa dulin tak blazen of vindi, onar yasi, onar berak, onar yasi, ansana verarkak, bo, nalaharka, bo, shi ansana verarkak, bo, nalaharka, bohor men yadag zni yadag vaidi. Da mensha irak masinam dam zi oir Kuda Shagini, Arhupala Slice, the Onar Yasi, Onar Verak, Onar Yasi, Ansana Kerarkak, Jussen Lan Pika, di Jussen Lan Hoindi, Jussen Zastroika, Den Sana Kerarkak, Onar Yasi, Onar Verak, Onar Yasi, Ansana Kerarkak, Bo, Nalaharka, Bo, Shiansana Kerarkak, Bo, Nalaharka, Bo, Hormen Yadex Niada Kovaidi, Bo, Nalaharka, Bo, Shiansana Kerarkak, Bo, Nalaharka, Bo, Hormen Yadex Niada Kovaidi.
Beautiful, all
That
of you.
was
Thank you so
absolutely
much. It's really
gorgeous.
great.
We have been speaking and listening to players from
Great.
Metropolitan Chorale and Fellswater, and they're going to be playing together tomorrow night, and tomorrow night only, 7:30 at the JFK Presidential Library, right in front of those big glass windows looking out at the water. For more information and to get tickets on Celtic Crossroads, go to metropolitanchorale.org, metropolitanchorale.org. Thank you so much for coming in.
And remember, Lisa said you can't buy at the door. You can buy on your phone, but you got to buy online.
Buy online, metropolitanchorale.org.
Thanks, you all. You're great.
Okay,
It was really
keeping
great.
up with our Irish theme here after a quick break, we talked this morning about the SJC enshrined the right to be rude. Well, we're going to open the lines to ask you, does that extend to the infamous Irish goodbye? Give us your calls and texts at 877-301-8970. You're listening to
Governor Healy has laid out her priorities.
We can protect our climate and create jobs. It's not too late to do either. It's urgent that we do both.
But what matters to you?
Support for social services and public education.
The abortion rights.
With New England Public Media, CAI Cape and Islands, and GBH News, we're asking people across Massachusetts which issues they want the governor to address. Have your say at gbhnews.org/yoursay.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Lexus Broadway in Boston, presenting My Fair Lady from director Bartlett Shear and Lincoln Center Theater, who brought you The King and I and South Pacific. My Fair Lady comes to Boston this April. More at lexusbroadwayinboston.com. And South County, Rhode Island, featuring 100 miles of coastline and 20 public beaches. South County visitors can find many ways to enjoy the water in the Ocean State. Learn more at southcountyri.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News. We're going to close out the show sort of where we started the show. In Massachusetts, this is what we did at the top of the show. Residents have a right to be rude. The state's highest court said that when it comes to how we interact with public officials. But what about with friends and family? If you couldn't tell from the Celtic music we just listened to, it is St. Patrick's Day today. To end the week, we're celebrating with a debate over something called the Irish goodbye. Now, if you're unfamiliar, like Marjorie apparently was, with the Irish goodbye, it's when you leave a party or any sort of gathering without acknowledging your exit or bidding your friends, your family, your colleagues adieu. Our number is 877-301-8970. I have to say, I am not Irish. I have elevated the Irish goodbye to an art form. Marjorie is Irish, and you couldn't do it if your life depended on it. We want to know if you are, I don't know if the right word is guilty, if you have practiced the Irish goodbye. Tell us if you have any tips how to do it, and if you find it offensive when somebody does just slink out with no notice, no goodbye, you can call us too at 877-301-8970. I'm sorry, Marjorie.
Since we have talked about the Irish goodbye before, which I was embarrassed to say I didn't even know about, I've learned a thing or two,
Like
Jim.
what?
Well, I have learned that in certain situations, I can pull it off. You know, you don't want to, you have to make sure it's you don't want to leave somebody's party when there's only like 20 people and slink out. That's very bad. But if it's a big group, you can just kind of say you're going to the bathroom and never return. You're going to get a drink at the bar.
When have you
and
done
never
that
come
ever
back.
in your life?
I've done it a few times.
You're not making
recently.
eye contact with me, which means you're making it
people
up.
might be listening. I don't want them to hear me.
Can I tell you, I am so good at the Irish goodbye that not too many years ago, my former colleagues in New York City had a dinner that was honoring me, and I did an Irish goodbye from my own event. Now that is really expertise in the Irish goodbye.
It's really rude and obnoxious at what it really is.
I don't
If
think they
had
even
a
knew that
dinner
I was
in your
going.
event
And by the
you
way,
left-
there are a lot of keys to this thing,
Yep.
which is why one of the reasons you can't do. Beyond the fact that you're much too polite for this kind of thing, you know what you cannot do? You can't do an Irish goodbye and then realize when you slink your way to the car, you left your keys back in the party that you have left. You got to take all your things with you. And what you also have to do, which you touched upon a minute ago, you have to plot your exit in advance.
Plot your exit.
Is it the bathroom?
Yeah.
Is it I got to make a call in the hall? Is it my kid just texted me? I got to get back to her. You need a plan, and you got to be disciplined and execute it well.
Well, you know what they say, 90% of life is showing up.
That is true.
So if you're going to show up, as you feel obligated to do it, things you don't really want to go to, I think that working on the Irish goodbye is a skill that you will be happy to have perfected.
Okay,
Jim.
before we get to the calls, I know you don't want to mention the specifics because you don't want to offend anybody who you allegedly Irish goodbye from.
Yep.
Describe in generic terms where you, by the way, I've said this before in the air, it's one of Marjorie's best qualities, which is what precludes her from doing this. If you want to talk to Marjorie and you go up to her, how long will you talk to that person?
Well,
forever. If they want to talk to you
I have somewhere to go,
until
lots of times,
Saturday, you will talk to them.
But sometimes I have someplace to go, and I explain to them I have another.
And you'll
thing I have
take
to
them
go
with
to.
you, generally.
I will take them with me.
Yes.
But I have left things recently.
No, you have not.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Tell me
not,
one.
I'm not going to go into it because.
Say it backwards.
No,
Spell
some
the person's
people
name backwards.
that I've done this are. I don't,
like who?
Why don't you tell us your latest Irish goodbye?
I left the GBH thing about a couple of months ago. I was at a GBH event, which was fabulous, by the way.
Which GBH event was that? Was
you
I
didn't
there?
even show up for it.
I didn't?
It was a fabulous Christmas event.
Oh.
A lot of drinking. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Oh,
by the way, if a lot of people are drinking, it's a lot
why.
oh, you did. It's a lot easier to make an Irish exit.
Yeah, you can't
goodbye
go to
from one of those
parties when
things.
you have COVID.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had the mildest case of COVID ever because I was vaccinated to beat the band.
You know what the other key is? If you walk out backwards, people think you're coming in. Have you ever tried that? 877-301-8970. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with Rena in South Boston. Hi.
Hey there.
Is it Rena or Rena? I may have gotten it wrong.
Hey.
It's Rena.
Oh,
Hi,
sorry.
Rena.
Hi. And I would like to say I missed a little bit of what you said with Marjorie.
Yeah.
First, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you.
To you too.
The Greek goodbye, which is saying goodbye and never leaving.
That's pretty good.
I don't know if people heard. Rena said that was the Greek goodbye. That is a really good one. Are you a practitioner of that, Rena?
I am a proud practitioner of the Greek goodbye. Yes, 100%.
Well, that is a problem.
100% Greek.
How do you? Is that because you just like people, or because you can't take cues from people who would like you to leave?
Well, I'm not going to say that I can't take cues from people and who want me to leave, but you just want to say goodbye to everyone. You know, you have something to say. I'll see you soon. I'll see you again, and tie everything up. So
yeah,
it's I'm always the last to leave the party, that's for sure.
I think that's probably a good thing for everybody at the party. You sound like a good one, Rena. Thanks. Happy St. Patrick's Day. We appreciate your call.
Happy St. Patrick's
Thanks.
Day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul from Worcester says, Jim does the Irish goodbye so the host doesn't see his pockets are full of food, which is an excellent point.
That is actually true.
And another texter says it's officially called an Irish exit.
No, I've heard that too, actually.
Yeah, so
but
I guess
think
you can
call it the Irish
goodbye or the Irish exit. Let's go to Karen in Maine. Hi, Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. So this is something my husband and I used to do way back in probably the late 80s and 90s, but didn't know it was the Irish goodbye until years later. But that was typically how we exited every event, with our friends and any kind of gathering we're at. We'd just be ready to go, and we give a real subtle signal that we were going to head out of there. And it was always kind of fun after the event to talk to people who were like, when did you leave? We didn't know you were leaving.
I like that too.
And, yeah.
So Karen, I know you don't want to give it away. What's the sign that you or your husband give to each other to say it's time to make the exit?
It was just a very subtle, knowing look.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and no one
Beautiful.
ever picked up on it. Yeah, so it was fun.
Beautiful thing. Karen in Maine, thanks so much. Here is somebody who, Val in Gloucester, makes a very good point. If you consider the Irish goodbye to be rude, which it really is, here's this person. Was doing the Irish goodbye before I knew there was a name for it. Called the host the next day to thank them. And she goes on to say, I'm half Irish, Jim. Why do you look Irish? I can't explain that. But that's the key. If someone like you feels guilt-ridden, and you are a guilt-ridden kind of person, you just call or text the next day and say what a terrific party or event it was, and you sort of atone for your Irish goodbye.
Andy from Yarmouthport is trying to get a quick ad in here for an Irish pub in Dennis.
Sure, why not?
O'Shea's Irish Pub, Route 28 in Dennis.
Yeah, I don't think Andy's leaving that anytime soon. Let's go to Mary Lou in Brookline.
Hi, Mary Lou.
Hey.
Hi, yes. Oh, I was talking to your screener, and I was saying how maybe it's kind of old school or old-fashioned, but I was always taught by relatives to, before you leave, to say goodbye and also to thank them for inviting you.
Exactly.
Because a surefire way to never, ever get invited by anybody, because they'll spread the word that you were kind of an ingrate and couldn't even spend 5 seconds to say goodbye before you left and thank you. It takes like 5 minutes. And if there was a reason why you had to leave early, a sick relative or whatever, you can call the next day and say,
exactly.
I wish I could have stayed longer, but I had a sick mother or father or whatever, or I had to go to work early next day.
Well, that's the key, by the way. The way you unroot it, if that's a verb, Mary Lou, and you sound like a very decent person, is what I said before. You text or write an email the next day, or even a personal note. Marjorie is the queen of the personal handwritten note. You write a note saying how much you love the event and sorry you had to scurry because you had to, whatever, you had to check your email.
But I'm with Mary Lou.
Thanks.
If you're at a small thing at someone's house, 20 people or something like that, and you don't say goodbye, that's pretty bad.
Wait a second. I've been to events with you, and you know why you didn't do that? You would turn to me and say, I don't want to be the first one to leave.
Well,
so what do you do?
You have to wait
what
a little
do you
while.
do then?
Well, you got to wait a while.
Well, what if you don't want to wait a little while?
Well, I don't know, but you got to always say goodbye if you're at a small thing.
You just told me that you did it twice in recent times.
But it was a big thing. It was more people.
What was it?
I'm not going to. You're trying to weasel this out of me, and I'm not telling you the thing. It was a bigger thing, and I slipped out, and no one was the wiser for it because you get lost in the crowd, you get lost in the shuffle.
Wow.
Liam, there's a good Irish name.
Hey, Liam, what's
in
up?
the car. What's up?
Hey, how you guys doing? You guys are great. I love your show.
Thank you.
I'm confused because when I was growing up in Andover, I had a lot of aunts and uncles and cousins, and we used to get together. And the Irish goodbye was always one of those things where you put on your coat, jacket, and then it would be another hour before you left.
That is the problem.
Well, that's a good version too. Yeah, another hour, another Guinness before you left, right?
Yeah, and my cousins and I would go off and play for another hour. And we knew the adults would just, saying goodbye and they're brothers and sisters. So, how much did they have to catch up on? But anyway, happy St. Patrick's Day.
And same to you, Liam.
I'm a musician. Yeah, I'm a musician, and I'm going to play for the old folks at assisted living homes.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it's really fulfilling.
Good for you. That's great, Liam. We're glad you're doing that,
Yeah.
and thanks for calling us. We appreciate it.
This is David from Cambridge. He's singing my tune here. He says, the Irish goodbye, I've done it many times, but only in a group large enough not to be noticed. I just didn't know it was called this. That's right. And hey, Jim, listeners agreeing with Marjorie right now on manners, working in Boston. And there's an actual word for the Irish goodbye.
What is it?
Well, I can't pronounce it correctly, but it's absquatulate or something.
Say that again, please.
It's a Gaelic word, which I can't pronounce.
Since I'm Jewish,
even
I
though my
think
grandmother spoke it, I
she
should have
did.
kept up with it. Yeah.
I think I can say this. Lev from Newton writes, I grew up with the expression the Gentiles leave and never say goodbye, and Jews say goodbye and never leave. So that's don't get upset with me or Lev. It is
That's a pretty
what it
good
is.
one.
877-301-8970. On St. Patrick's Day, we're talking about the Irish goodbye, or the Irish exit, as somebody texted us a few minutes ago.
Marianne from Foxborough.
Marianne, hi.
Hi. Good to talk to you guys.
too.
I listen to you every day.
Thank you.
Similar to the guy that just called in, our family, I thought it was an Irish goodbye that took at least a minimum of an hour. We're always with a big party of people, and the people that marry into our family are very frustrated because when it's time to go, it takes at least an hour to say goodbye to everyone. And that's just not my four brothers and I. It's also the next generation of a pile of 20-somethings and 30-somethings. Now it's a huge job to get out. But I always thought that was an Irish thing.
Well, wait a second. Let's just, whatever it's called, Marianne, when you've had enough, and you say, this is a great time, but I've really had enough of this, do you still go through the long exit?
It's no, you can't possibly get through all of it because there's so many of us. So you just try, and the married-in people get very annoyed, and you end up making sure you're at least saying goodbye to the people that hosted, and gradually just squeezing yourself goodbye, and hugs all the way to the door. It's a challenge every time, but I always thought it was an Irish thing. It's so funny to hear that it's the opposite.
Marianne, thanks for the call. We really appreciate it.
A lot of people are claiming this. Rebecca from the Irish Riviera, Hummerock Beach, she says, I'm an expert of the Irish goodbye. I love to host parties, and I never want the party to stop, but I usually get tired before it ends, so doing the Irish goodbye makes my guests feel awkward about staying when the guest... I'm goofing this up, when the host has gone to bed. But she's talking about, and I've had this in my family.
Well, that's tougher, by the way. If you're the host, to leave first.
And you just go up, you say goodnight, and you go upstairs.
It's
to
your
room.
house?
I've been at those.
Well, I don't think you can say goodnight. You just have to go upstairs, don't you? And just disappear?
Yeah, but you kind of sneak upstairs, I guess.
Wait, you've done that too?
No, I haven't, but I've been at my
think
Irish
so.
family's home when people have done that there. And Paul from Worcester says, a Jewish goodbye consists of 1.5 hour of bragging and complaining about your kids to each person there. Is that right, Jim?
I wouldn't know. Let's go to Peter in the car. You're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking Irish goodbye on St. Patrick's Day. Hey there.
Hey, Sue and Marjorie.
Hey.
This has been a real learning experience for me. You know, I always thought the Irish goodbye was don't let the door hit you on the butt on the way out.
It's a pretty good one too there, Peter.
That's a better one, Peter. Thank you very much for the call. Jack from Watertown says, my mother always told me never be the first one to arrive or the last one to leave.
By the way, this is another one that I practice. Tony from Worcester. This is a good one. Italians like to say goodbye to certain people and leave out the ones they don't like, so everyone knows who's been snubbed. That's another good way to leave an event. Do you say goodbye to everybody when you leave the host? Just the host.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Maureen in Gloucester, thank you for calling.
Hello, Maureen.
Hello.
Hello.
I was kind of shocked when I heard your definition of the Irish goodbye, because the Irish goodbye to me, from living in Scotland but with a whole Irish background, is you never got out the door. You just had another thing to say and another thing to say, and it went on forever.
So maybe this is an American version of the Irish goodbye. What do you think, Maureen? How about that?
Somebody made it up, because it's not really the way that's just so rude, and Irish wouldn't do that.
Well, Maureen, you're a good representative. Thank you for making the case. We appreciate your call. Maureen from Gloucester.
Did you see the Banshees of
No, I don't even know how to pronounce it.
I don't know how to pronounce it either.
You saw it?
I did.
What did you think of it?
Well, I thought it was a little over the top with the friendship was breaking up. The beautiful scenes of Ireland.
Yeah,
it was a nice friendship, but the consequences of the friendship breaking up were like horrible to watch.
Why'd you think of that?
Because we're talking about Ireland.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Donna in Charlestown. Hi, Donna.
Hey, Donna.
Hi there. This is Kathy Kelly's friend, Jim.
Oh, hey, Donna. It's so nice to talk to you.
How are you?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
And the same. So years ago, my husband Jim and I went to the most boring wedding on the planet, and we couldn't even find it. It began with one of those like Medfield or Maynard or whatever. So we got to the wedding. It was just so it was just
we got it.
Kind of outrageous. So in any event, what we did was we went to the wedding. We sat down and figured we'd take the Irish exit. So we got up to dance. Danced over through the kitchen, past the people preparing the meal.
That is great.
And danced ourselves right out the back door.
I love that. That is that is beautiful.
Danced out the back door. That's a good one.
How proud of yourselves were you and your husband, Donna, after that? That's a beautiful story.
I was pretty proud of him. I'm really good at the Irish exit, I'll tell you that much.
You perfected it over the years.
I was joint 20 seconds. Huh?
Hey, Donna, thanks for the call. I'm glad you mentioned the great Kathy Kelly, a common friend of ours who is no longer with us, who's one of the greats ever, I should say.
Yeah, you don't want to say goodbye to if the party's in the midst of happening, because you don't want the hostess to think you're having a bad time, too. So that's another reason to sneak out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting it finally.
But if it's a small group, you have to, because they've noticed you've left.
Yeah.
But, you don't
You're agonizing. I don't think you need to agonize over this.
I'm agonizing over it,
I
Jim.
know you are.
I am agonizing.
Are you going to tell me
over
after the show what the two things were that you Irish exited from recently?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you.
Okay,
I'll tell
fine.
you. They weren't. It's not that exciting. It's not that exciting.
Well, it's exciting that you did it, because I didn't think it was part of your deal.
877-301-8970
Show's almost
is the number
over,
we're talking about. Oh, it is
40
almost
seconds
over.
until we're done.
Okay, so I guess I shouldn't take any more
So what
phone
did you
calls
learn
then.
from this discussion, Margaret? Will you
I
change
learned
your
that
behaviors in the future?
I need to work on it. I need to be more subtle about it. I need to make sure I don't hurt anybody's feelings, and I need to do it in a kind of a secret agent type way.
How about like the person who just called? Why don't you just dance your way out of the... How great is that? You dance your way past the kitchen workers.
I think it's not bad.
Right into the parking lot, and then you're totally
But you do
done.
have to call the people the next day, or text them, or
Exactly.
email them,
I
and
always do
explain
that.
why you had to leave early, because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah.
Okay, we are
That's
done. We are done.
We're done.
You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Thank you for listening today. Thank you to the people that came down to the Boston
Thank you
Public
all for
Library.
coming. We
I hope
appreciate
you had
it.
a great time listening to the great chorale and all
Metropolitan
the
Chorale.
Metropolitan Chorale and all the great music we had
Fellsworth.
today. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.
And great guests today, including Marty Baron and
Bill McKibben.
Bill McKibben. Okay, on Monday.
Don't forget, Bill McKibben's thing is Tuesday. This action against the four biggest banks supporting the fossil fuel industry. If you go to Third Act, and third is spelled out, thirdact.org, it has all the information on what's happening all over the country, including in downtown Crossing at noon on Tuesday.
That's right. And I also want to say March Madness, some local teams. Providence College is going to be going up against Kentucky tonight at 7 o'clock.
correct.
So good luck to the
Wow,
Providence
that's
College
right.
Friars. I'm very excited. I hope they can pull off an upset there. And I want to mention on Monday, we're going to have a political panel. Charlie Chipio and Michael Curry talking about this divide among the presidential candidates, or between Trump and DeSantis, about the war in Ukraine. Stacey Thompson, Jim Aloisi will be with us to talk transit.
Great.
Reverends Irene Monroe and Emmett Price as well. And travel guru Rick Steed is going to tell us about traveling to Iceland. I want to thank our
That is great.
I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John LeClaw Parker, Brian Bell back on the boards for us today, and our executive producer, Jamie Bologna, our BPL on-site staff, Colin Cockrell, Sai Patel, and Evelyn Brito. And you have anything to say, Jim, before we go here?
I would have to say happy St. Patrick's Day.
To you too.
And to you too.
Thank you. Is that
Take
it?
care. I'm making an Irish exit right now. See you on Monday. Have a great
I'm Marjorie
weekend.
Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you can tune again in on Monday. And meanwhile, I hope you have a great weekend. And to all you Irish people and non-Irish people, I hope you have a fun St. Patrick's Day.
Bye.